Yeah, I'm gonna start it on this other computer, just have it in the background. So that goes.
I'm scared to death.
All right, let's see if we can check audio, and but then we'll bring in our special guest. Look at Boiler Boy, listen to his stuff. So, as you all know, we'll be more of a, laid back and fun stream. Well, at least we'll try to. But so, um, let's see. We will do. All right. If we a little different size, so a little. What you saying? Bit low, 10% or so in the audio. The audio is not enough. Y'all holler. If who. It's always fun trying to size things and do things. So I don't know if I guess well introductions. So yeah, that's not it's not Teddy, Boiler Boy. We can't do Teddy 2 times in a row. You know the rules, right? That we don't follow. Oh, you can't hear Chris. Okay, that would help if because I muted Chris during the beginning and I forgot to unmute him. Let's see if we can hear Chris now.
Yeah, I haven't said a word actually. Hey, there's Johnny. Johnny Bergdahl. He's one of my subscribers.
Cool.
It's interesting to see how many people are subscribed to all these different,
Yeah.
us all as popular,
So
gadget people.
I don't know if anybody knows. The dog's trying to come in now. So if I don't know, if I guess introduction. Chris also has another YouTube channel, and I'll say the competition. No, I'm just kidding. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on here. But so he has a YouTube channel. I guess I've only started watching a few of his things recently. I know he does a lot of Tasmota or Tasmota. I don't know. Maybe he says it right, unlike I do half the time. But so his YouTube channel is mostly Chris. So of course, that he sent a contract over that's saying that most of the channel while during the stream had to be mostly Chris. so no, I'm just kidding. So, but so I guess I'll let Chris go ahead and talk and see what kind of I guess background of what his channel is and stuff because I will say I haven't dug through everything of his stuff.
Yeah, so we're going to be informal. I'm going to say a bunch of baloney, and we'll just have it at that. But so I have I have a little YouTube channel, that little streaming service that has a couple of videos on it, and I like to put a few things up now and then. And you're right, I do some I thought it was Tasmota. I've always called it Tasmota. Something else? Does somebody else call it? Now pronounce Xiaomi. Say that one.
Xiaomi, yeah. Yeah, well, the going thing is people always pick on the way I say stuff, like YAML. What's
That.
the Tasmo? I always used to say it like Tasmoto, and kind of like Motorola, but I think that's where that comes from a lot. Is we used to always call the radios. I worked in the oil field as motos, and because we were like, oh, get your Motorola, and we were like, we just shortened it to motos, and so I guess that's more stuck with me. So
We do a little Taz today.
yeah,
That's what I'll say from now on.
that's
Hey,
it.
today we're talking about Taz.
Yep.
That's what I'll do. Anyway, so I do a lot of, and I know this is probably you're going to drop about 20 viewers when I say this, but I do mostly Home Assistant, home automation stuff that way. And I know we talked a little bit about that. You do it one way, I might do it another way, but it's a good contrast to how things are done and how we do different things. So, honestly, I started my YouTube channel last February-ish, and I thought, this is to be something fun to play with. I watch my kids, or I look at my kids watch YouTube all day, and I'm like, those people on there that they watch, they run around and give away hamburgers
Yep.
and money, and they have scavenger hunts, and they do silly things like swamp monsters and stuff like that. I thought I might do a little something that's a little more educational and something I'm passionate about. So it really came about in my current role at my current job. I do a lot of more management stuff, and I don't get to play with technology as much. So this gives me an opportunity to get in there and really dig into technology and play with stuff and help people. And I think the big thing came about with the Nest integration when Nest released their Smart Development API or Smart Device API. That was a beast of a thing to try to configure. And so I said, I was already doing these videos a little bit, and I really jumped on that one. And that one's probably been one of the biggest ones I've done to make things work. So anyway, I like playing with technology. I like sharing it. I like making videos. I like doing this kind of stuff. So it just kind of all fits all the little boxes, or checks all the boxes of what I like to do. So anyway, yeah, I see all these. There's all the videos.
Yep.
People ask me, like, I got something like 95 videos or something like that now.
Wow, pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I looked at a couple of them. I would say more than a couple of them, but yeah. So pretty cool stuff. So
and I try to take people from. It's if you were to give it a level right now, a lot of stuff I do is basically on the software side of stuff. So you get a lot of like configuration and a lot of things and integrations and things like that. I'm now getting into more of like the Tasmota, the flashing of firmware on things. My electronics background comes from, for one, I was in the military, so I had a electronics training there. I'm a ham radio guy, so I did electronics courses to get my ham radio license.
cool.
I've done Linux system administration for years. So I have the software stuff. I've got a little bit of a computer science background, a little bit. It's not my degree, management information systems. So I have all these things. I thought it would be kind of cool to put all it together and do something with it. And it keeps me dabbling in technology and doing the fun stuff like that.
Yeah,
So that's the intro.
definitely.
The intro.
Yeah.
Mostly
So,
me
huh?
reading the comments. Someone just subscribed to Mostly Me.
Oh,
Oh, Chris White. Yeah,
Chris
that makes
Wright.
sense.
Yeah. So, so yeah, it's always kind of cool to hear kind of the backstory. I mean, I don't think I've ever really given kind of a backstory of stuff. Maybe one day or during this whole thing type deal. Otherwise, I end up may go rather long, like some of my videos. I know. Look, I was looking at some of the times on some of yours, and I'm like, oh, it's not too far off from some of my times as well. I used to be really. I used to try to watch the times on stuff, but now with I kind of let it go because I hate to cut out. I do cut out a lot of stuff when I'm editing. And it's just because, it's like, hey, it feels good at that time to put it in there. But then later on, you had, second thoughts. But I really love the chapters that you can put in on the YouTube videos. I don't know if you do a lot of that stuff on yours.
Every video now,
Yeah.
unless I forget.
Yeah. Because it's so easy to put in there, and it allows people like, hey, if they don't want to watch a 10-minute segment on how to install something because they already have it, and they can just jump straight over to it. And I'm not like, okay, well, I'm boring somebody and they're going to click off of it type thing. So
Have you seen when you've done searches on YouTube or on Google for something where it says it pulls up videos for that topic and it says key moments in this video? I think it's taking those chapters that you put in your video and then making the key moments come off of or show up in that little search thing to show you where to go in the video. So they're probably using that for their benefit as well. I look at videos. In fact, I recorded one earlier today, and you know, you look at the timer on OBS or whatever you're recording on, you're like, that was 30 minutes of baloney that I just said, you know. And I think people are going to watch me talk about this random crap that I talk about right in the middle of my video. Like, I'll go into a tangent about something and I'll watch it back and think that sounds really stupid, so I just cut it out.
Yep. Totally.
That's why I like live streams. The live streams are just whatever. You know, it's funny. I got a comment, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I got a comment on one of my last videos where I left the troubleshooting or the crap in it, you know, just some of the extra stuff. And they didn't like it. They were pretty upset that they wasted 5 minutes of their time watching me troubleshoot the problem. And in fact, that video was about learning how to do that thing. It was the one on Almond, which is like a voice assistant deal.
Yeah.
Open source voice assistant.
Yep.
And the whole point was just to see if I could make it work. And I did it kind of in a live stream, but recorded way. And so I did. I left some of that stuff. And they're like, all you did was dad jokes. And I mean, Almond lets you tell me a dad joke. Yeah. So I used that a lot as an example of it working. So anyway, the point of that whole statement is, yeah, I try to watch the time just because I know some people get bored and wander off, and I'm trying to keep it on point. But then the live streams are when I get to go out and just kind of talk about whatever. You know, the videos are teaching and the live streams are the just having fun.
Yeah,
with it.
and that's where I like to do is, you know, and I'm kind of looking at some of the comments of just things while you're talking, which it does. I will say it makes it a little easier. I've done, you know, like my last live stream, I did that with Matt, or we call him Teddy on Discord. But so it's just like kind of cool to read some of the stuff because while I'm doing things and whatnot. But so I know. Let's see. I did want to talk about mesh network. I haven't messed with the mesh networking on Tasmota yet. Yeah, so I'll probably get to that eventually, but I know it's very early. I don't know if you've seen some of that stuff on Tasmota where it uses ESP-NOW protocol. So it is over Wi-Fi but it's not over Bluetooth, but you do require an ESP32 as like your gateway. And then it uses, and I know someone will probably correct me on it, part of the packets of Wi-Fi, like some of the handshake packets, I believe, and it uses that part where you don't have to have it doesn't rely on your Wi-Fi really to work, and it makes a mesh of even ESP8266s, so you can have like battery powered devices like remotes and all kind of stuff.
Just do the Discord. Did I just blow up? I'm trying to. Oh yeah, you're probably pulling it up. So I was trying to pull up a browser window here. Probably just messed up your resizing. Let me go back. I see what they're talking about here with that.
Yeah, I can pull up something in there.
So that's one of the things. Oh, it's backwards.
Yeah, well, it's backwards on your side.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's interesting because I was going to ask you about, you know, why would you take a Wi-Fi and add mesh stuff to it?
Well, one thing you can do, they do have they do also have the ESP32 with the Ethernet on it. So you could use that one and plug it in Ethernet. Now it's not PoE, so you'll still need to power that, but you could do it Ethernet, and then you wouldn't even have like Wi-Fi involved at all. So,
but what is the benefit of this? Just to, like any other stuff, to extend the range? I know we're probably getting off topic here, but
no, that's fine. I really don't have a topic. We're gonna go and we'll probably jump around. But I know there was a guy, and I'm a butcher his name, so I don't know. I have to go back and look at my email. His guy in Australia. that he was making several PCBs, including remotes and different buttons. And this was a couple years ago. But because like you gonna make an ESP-8266 or say even an ESP-32, and you can make it battery powered, right? I just straight up blunt, it sucks because you either have to leave it on all the time, which is going to burn the battery down in no time, or you make it sleep. Well, then the problem is it has to wake up, connect to the Wi-Fi, has to get DHCP, connect to MQTT, and then finally drop that message. Now, that sucks for like motion sensors, battery powered, door sensors, because a lot of times you're doing an automation based off of, hey, I'm going to open this door. I want the light to turn on, right? Well, you don't want to wait 4 seconds for that light to turn on. That's stupid. Well, yep. I can, maybe a water leak detector, because really, I mean, with a water leak going on, 4 seconds is probably not going to make a difference in any type of damage. Yeah, as long as you get the notification. But other things, well, ESP-NOW, it's pretty much instantaneous, where you can make these battery-powered devices, like say even a remote control to turn on lights. And I know some people are like, well, I can do that with Z-Wave, I can do that with Zigbee. Well, there's multiple ways to do everything, and that's the whole thing of home automation. So,
one of my mantras is people will tell me that this is the way. They'll watch something and say, well, I've done it this way or whatever. So the point is, you can do it however you want to. Yeah. When I was a Linux system administrator, our thing was there might be 20 different ways to fix the same problem. As long as you fix it in the end reliably, that's the same thing. And I see the comments, and I was looking at that webpage real quick. That I sent you that link.
Oh, okay.
Under the docs. And it was it's essentially just, and Johnny said it too, it's an extension, range extension. So once your Wi-Fi runs out, you can then mesh out your ESP stuff farther out. I can see something like a remote gate or a mailbox or something like that. That would be something, there's traditional. If you go down, there's a little one that talks a little bit more about, that one right there. So once that arc goes away, that's your traditional that's your Wi-Fi range.
Yep.
Those devices on the outside of the range, and let's say it's a mailbox or something outside, that would be far away from your Wi-Fi router, might be something that would work back into your network. I wonder how fast that, like you said, I wonder how fast that stuff is.
From what I recall, it was pretty quick because they doesn't have to get an IP address, so there's no DHCP, and I just remember it being very quick, and that was that. I know I had to go back and look at what his name was. I had to hit him up again.
You said, was it Jonathan Travis?
No.
I'm trying to keep up with the comments here, and I'm not doing a good job.
I'd have to go back and look, and then I'll end up putting my email on the stream, which that'll be bad and everything. And so, but so look, Mark saying ESP-NOW is very fast. One question I do have with it, I know it's like I'm assuming it's kind of like with Zigbee and Z-Wave, is your battery powered sleeping ones aren't going to be they're going to be endpoints of the mesh. Now, of course, your sensors that are active can be that active mesh. So, and now they all typing up and stuff here. I guess Jim's having fun. No, it wasn't Superhouse. I don't think he has a YouTube channel. I'll go back and look. While I'm sure Chris is going on about something else, I can go on and go dig up an email or something. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that more. That's interesting because I have all these boards sitting around, and I'd love to have some sensors out on the periphery of my property or something that are just kind of battery powered.
Yep. That
will send me an update. Use cases are different for everybody, just like different ways to do it. You might have a way to utilize that, but
Tony, if it's just Lamont, it was his name.
Tony Lamont?
Yep. I haven't heard from him in a while, so anybody still knows Tony Lamont. That was who it was.
How do I get back to the channel?
That's not Superhouse, is it? Superhouse is Jonathan Oxer, isn't it? I know, I was just reading some of the comments.
Yeah.
He sent this to me. I'm gonna bring it over there to the other screen. If I can get it to pull up without my email in the background.
Just share your email.
Yeah.
That's what blurring's for. Or when someone says, "Oh, by the way, you blurred everything, but for that 1 second, you shared your Wi-Fi password."
I have
Never
some,
done that this week.
so this is one thing. I know he said he was going to be trying to sell them on Tindy, and this is like one of his remotes, and I haven't gone back and looked to see if he actually is, but you can actually see this is a ESP chip here. I know we all recognize the logo, and so this was like his little switch button remote thing, and I'm guessing this looks like a reed switch over here. That he was also doing some door sensors. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that looks an awful lot like the form factor for one of those battery powered door sensors.
right. So I know
In fact, is that a
he
magnet on the right-hand side?
yeah, that's what it looks like.
Or I'm sorry, you said a reed switch. Is that the actual reed in there?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking it is. It's just one of those protective things so you don't have the glass too. I've seen those before. So
what that begs the question, like what is it just so you have Z-Wave, Zigbee, and ESP, what'd you call it?
ESP-NOW.
Something? ESP-NOW. It's like, it sounds to me like another option for doing something like that.
Well, and options are always good. I mean, because people always ask, "Hey, why don't you use Z-Wave?" And I have a long, drawn out story of before I even knew what the word Home Assistant was. I got into doing some Z-Wave switches and dimmers, and they would just, it was every day something would fall off the network, and and then the wife was like, "Oh, why isn't the dimmer working again?" And finally, I found this cool thing called the Sonoff Basic, and I was like, wow, these things just work, and they're on Wi-Fi. I can ping them and they don't fall off the network. Well, later I did find out that they're like, with using a little SDR, I just had swaths of like, just, I don't know what it is. Somebody using some sort of 900 megahertz backhaul or something. This was even before we had smart meters in the area. And it was just interference all across the 900 megahertz band. And so I just had major issues with Z-Wave. I haven't had any issues with Wi-Fi. I haven't had issues with Zigbee. And the weird thing, I never did have any issues with the Y sensors that were 900 megahertz as well. So, but I haven't gone back and circled back to Z-Wave, but I think it's always cool that, because, it's like, I know Z-Wave has a lot of different bands and frequencies, but then, so like you could have something like, for instance, Tony, he could sell something like this and anybody could use it. It's not like, oh, well, you can't use that in that country because the Z-Wave frequency is different or something like that. So yeah. I think it's just one of those cool things of having a lot of different options and stuff out there.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, that's what keeps competition going and keeps things like that happening. I'm still waiting on, was it Chip or whatever that stuff is, and see what
Thread or
that nonsense.
Whatever weird name they're going to call it now.
I mean, do we need that? I don't think so. I mean, what they're trying to do, and what the holy grail of all this stuff is somebody's trying to make it so that, let's take my wife, for example. She can go to the store, buy this thing, plug it in, and boom, it's just going to work.
Yep.
They're trying that with the smart speakers. Everything is integrated to smart speakers. But even then, you got to install the skill for it. You got to do all this stuff. And I think, with this chip thing or whatever, they're just saying, here's a thing, plug it in. It's going to talk to our stuff, and you'll be able to control it with our stuff. I don't like that. What I love about Home Assistant is the ability to take everything, pretty much. I don't even know what the number of integrations are now, but it's a lot. And basically just run whatever you want using that interface. And you build your own dashboards and things like that. So there's that aspect of it. And then, like, I think if I'm understanding correctly, you run most of your stuff. You don't run Home Assistant. You run Node-RED. I don't know where you run Node-RED at. Probably standalone, maybe.
Yeah.
I think we should talk about our infrastructure.
Yeah, and I figured we would get to that. I do run Home Assistant, so.
Okay, good. It sounded to me like from some of the comments, it wasn't kind of your primary thingy.
Oh, there it is. That's the name of it. Matters, what they're calling it now. Because that's such a unique word to Google is the word matter. So,
What the heck? That don't matter. See what I did there?
yeah, yeah.
I'm here. I'm here all until I get booted.
Yeah, no. If we still had people left watching me and Matt, I think that we were fine. So we were having fun the other day. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, I had a comment. And I totally lost it. Frederico was. I saw Frederico was in the chat, and I know he knows a lot about the ESP-NOW mesh stuff with the Bluetooth. Is it Bluetooth mesh? I know it's just ESP-NOW, I believe. I don't know, or was it Bluetooth, Frederico? Maybe I do have it wrong.
Bluetooth's range is terrible.
Yeah, I thought it
This kind of
was.
stuff.
I could have sworn it was. We'll pull that up because now I got me wondering. There's just so many damn protocols around. I just make sure. I don't know. Let's see.
Keeps me in business. Keeps me in
Yeah, that's
business.
it.
I just don't know the state of IoT in general. I think we're a long ways from having anything that's like one standard that people are going to operate from.
Let's see. They were calling it Taz Mesh, and okay. So build them. I did have it right. Okay. Whew. Okay. Anybody build a mesh of nodes using ESP-NOW. Okay. So
It's an ESP32 broker. Is that just MQTT? No, in that comment right there.
yeah. I know it's. Like I say, I haven't messed with it yet, so I'm a withhold comment on what.
Let's just read the code and we'll just solve it right here.
Yeah, that's it, right? We will go through and meticulously read every single line of code, and then we'll be down to having two people left watching the
watchers
stream,
are
right?
dropping off like eyes no. Well, that's an interesting concept, and it looks like that board that you were showing earlier that you're going to have devices built against this. Like I would envision that like that door sensor, just putting it on a door and just see what it does. Someone's gonna have to design the boards and sell that stuff.
Yeah, and I remember I found one thing in here. So they do talk about some of the, like, I know everybody, this is Theo that actually, I don't know if people know the little weird icon, but that's one of the major developers of Tasmota. But so he talked about a lot of the things and the issues, and this FL you can recognize, that is Frederico. And so it's a good little thread to read on. I know we're not going to go sit here and read the whole thing and bore everybody, but I'll pop the link in the chat if you wanted to dig through there. And I just haven't had time myself to really go through and look at the Taz mesh code. And as well as I would say it's probably going to evolve a good bit. And I would still call it kind of alpha, if you want to say it's alpha. So, but
well, we'll see. That'll be fun to play with, I think.
So I guess you hit on one of the things I did want to bring up. I think I watched some of your stuff, and you do a lot of the I'll say it correctly now. It's not Has.io, but Has.os for a lot of your stuff, right?
The name has changed so many times.
don't
yeah,
get me started.
I call it Home Assistant. So I'm running supervised Home Assistant. I think that's the term. Yeah. So you'd almost have to look at the iterations of the names.
You got to look it up.
I do. I still do. And I'm embarrassed when I talk to people and they're like, oh, you're running blah. I'm like, okay. So I'm running Home Assistant operating supervised. Yeah. So, well, it says that's alternate. See, there's 4 different installation methods. There are 2 alternate installations for experienced users. Well, I'm running the first one. It must be. So I'm running Home Assistant operating system. So if I go into my supervisor And one of the things we didn't set up here was me jumping in here and looking at my
Yeah.
stuff here. But if I go into my supervisor, I have the Home Assistant OS version and then the Home Assistant supervisor version. So I have two different things that run on there. So yes, I run that first one. And but I know there are a lot of people that are running their own like servers with this as a container.
Yep.
Or a VM or whatever else. Everyone each to their own, right?
Yeah. I mean,
there's
and that
the
is
WAF.
That is one of the things that I pick on, and I pick on my own self for saying it. You know, it's like, and I know it drives, not to say drive me nuts, but it's just a pet peeve of mine is, but I even do it just to kind of do some of the SEO stuff. But it's like someone's like, "Oh, this is the best camera," and you're like, "No, that's not maybe the best for you, and not the best for your next door neighbor." You know, it's like, "Hey, this is the best way," because like I would say, "Hey, Home Assistant is the best." Well, it's the best for me, but my neighbor, there's no way they're gonna run Home Assistant. You know, they would be hard up to try to just run something like, you know, Smart Things or whatever. You know, it's just so use whatever way that you feel comfortable with and you run. And I started out just really with Home Assistant. It was almost kind of an accident. I started out with a friend of mine said, "Oh man, you got to get Smart Things. Got to get Smart Things." He showed me all kind of cool stuff with Smart Things. So I got into Smart Things, and then I got a few. That's when I found I brought my Z-Wave stuff I already had, and I'm like, well, nope, my Z-Wave stuff still sucks. And I was like, if it sucks on Smart Things, then there's some other problem. And then I got a little Zigbee stuff, and then when I found the ESP-266, and I'm like, why doesn't Smart Things have MQTT? It drove me nuts. And so then that's when I started looking around for other stuff, and I was like, oh, what's this Home Assistant thing? And I run Unraid, and it's just a NAS type of, it's Linux underneath, but they got a really slick Docker GUI on it. And which pretty much you just click on there and say, hey, I wanted Home Assistant. You hit install, boom, and then you clicked web. There was no onboarding at that time. And you just clicked open, and boom, I was looking at the GUI. And I was like, holy crap. It found like 3 or 4 Rokus. It found my 3 or 4 Google Homes. And within seconds, I was typing and doing text to speech and sending messages across the house. And I was like, phew, I'm sold. And I was like, holy crap, look, it's got MQTT as well. And I was like, yeah, this is it. We're done. So that's when, after that, I just stuck with Home Assistant after that.
So I'll tell you my story about it. I don't remember exactly why I got into home automation. Well, maybe I do. One of my bosses at one of my previous places, he was all into this stuff. He had cameras everywhere, which to me was like, why do you have cameras everywhere? Well, now I have cameras everywhere because I just love playing with them. But for Home Assistant, I started with Vera.
Oh, yeah.
And I have never, and now I'm not here to bash Vera or say anything about them. They've probably come a long way since I've been on there. But their stuff, that interface was the worst thing I've ever used in my entire life. You had to do like these weird rain dance things, and you had to stand on your head and flip backward and stuff. Once you made a change in the UI, reboot 3 times, circle around, and come back, and maybe it would stick. I never really understood that thing, and then it would lock up, and it would be things like I have my alarm disarms itself at a certain time in the morning, so that when my wife wakes up, she didn't have to do anything with it.
Yep.
And Vera would lock up in the middle of the night, and the alarm wouldn't disarm, and I'd have to get up and deal with that piece of crap. And so over and over again, I was having problems with it. And then my brother one day just showed me this kind of cool interface. And I like toys. I like shiny new things. And I thought, let me just go in here and just see what this old Home Assistant's all about. And
Yep.
I did it on I'm not going to mess with it. I don't have time for this kind of nonsense. And sure enough, I started getting into it more and more. And I've been on it probably 2 or 3 years or more now. And I've gone up through all the iterations, and it's just, to me, like you said, you just plug something in and here it goes. And the thing is, back early on when I was on this, it didn't have all these integrations, and these things weren't automatic and things weren't happening. And I did a lot of YAML. I did a lot of like, especially automations. Nowadays, automations are all UI based. But the one of the things I was going to say a minute ago is in terms of like what version I run, I have a very limited amount of time, and I would love to run, and plus space, right? I have a NAS that's, I will tell you, and if my wife's watching, which I know she's not, I have electronic crap in every corner of my house. I have stuff in the attic that probably should not be in the attic. I have stuff in the bottom of the master closet. That's where my NAS and stuff sits. I got cabinets in one of the other rooms with the camera computer. My office here has, I mean, I just stuff everywhere. I have so much junk. I would love to have like a little home lab area and run something like Unraid. But so anyway, I went with I started with Ubuntu. No, I started with the Raspberry Pi 3. I didn't like it just didn't handle things like Grafana and stuff like that, which I run in it.
Yep.
I moved to a mini tower, which is sitting on the floor here, unused now. A Lenovo like mini desktop, running Ubuntu. I ran that, and then I ran. Now I'm running the HA Blue, the Odroid Blue.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea for me is to be able to play with the stuff that goes on in Home Assistant rather than messing with the thing that's running on. Primarily because I just don't have time. And I also have heard a lot of things, and it's interesting what you're saying, because I've heard a lot of, I can't get the USB port to get to my Docker container, and I got to do all this other stuff to make this plugin work, and I can't, half the time it shuts down, and I reboot, and I've lost all my Z-Wave or my Zigbee, my dongle doesn't show up. I just wonder, that kind of thing. Do you have issues with, ports and forwarding and all that?
Well, so kind of, this is like, I figured this was a good screen because that's a good clean setup of, it's from one of my Unraid videos. And so basically the way I run stuff is, and now some people say, well, hey, I don't want a full blown server. Well, I already had my Unraid server running before I even knew the word Home Assistant. Like I was using Influx, I was using Grafana, I was using MQTT for stuff. I was using a lot of different things. I just wasn't using Home Assistant. And so I had all that set up already. And so it was kind of the way I run stuff now is MQTT is like really is life for me. It's the middle of my home. It's not Home Assistant. And Home Assistant is, you can make these great GUIs and all this stuff, and I know you make some stuff, and mine looks like an absolute mess. We just don't use the GUI. We never have, because my thing was always, which is funny that I had a conversation with someone tonight at my son's karate thing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you do smart home stuff," and they're like, "Oh yeah, I have to tell this assistant." Whichever one you pick, and tell it to turn on this one, but I forgot the name of the lamp. And what's funny, they tell you about their smart homes when they're just voice controlled homes.
I can't stand that.
And it's like, no, your smart home should be smart and make decisions. And but I'm not gonna go through and because their eyes are gonna roll and everything. But they're like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, well, I have it where when I get up in the morning, it knows it's morning. The motion light comes on in the bathroom and turns on at like 10%, like warm white. I take a shower where I can barely see my hand in front of my face. And then I do turn on a light if I need to in there. But the humidity level comes up and it automatically triggers another binary that says, hey, the shower must be on. And so then it puts a hold on my motion light because it figures I'm in the shower. Well, then when the humidity drops, and then the vent turns on as well. Well, then when the humidity drops, that clears that shower binary, which will then the timer starts again for the motion light and it will turn back off. So it's kind of like get up in the morning. I don't touch anything. I wish I could probably have it turn the shower on for me, but it's like I don't touch anything, get out of the shower, and then walk out. And it does everything. And then same thing, because another state of is my alarm is armed, and it will turn on, like we have follow me type of motion lighting. And I have some dim motion lighting that comes on in the hallway, the living room, the kitchen, and that's all based on motion sensors, and all that's like fully automated. And well, then like I leave, and so my wife is still sleeping, and I may set the alarm back, and it puts everything back where when she gets up, it's ready for her type thing. So, and it's like I do a lot of stuff with the different states of things, whether we're home or not. And it's like truly making that smart home, not just a remote control home.
Yeah, is that done mostly in Node-RED?
Yeah. See, my thing with that was because I came on like I was like 0.5 or something like that of Home Assistant, and I was like, okay, hey, I want to start doing this automation stuff, and I'm not picking on anybody of the developers that do this stuff. Hey, I appreciate everything they do. It just wasn't for me, even though I do a lot of coding and my background is coding. It felt like I spent more time on the web, on the Home Assistant forums, trying to figure out copying and pasting stuff, and then stuff was changing, and I was like, oh, this is, oh, you forgot a space here, you forgot a tab here, or whatever it may be, or no, you got to wrap that in quotes. And I was like, it got frustrating was the syntax. Well, then I saw on Reddit, someone's like, oh, well, here's how you do with Node-RED. And I was like, well, hell, what's this bubble thing they're doing? And that's when I got in. I did a couple little things in Node-RED, and I'm like, I'm not looking back. And I have a few automations in Home Assistant, YAML code, but like 98% of my stuff is going to be in Node-RED. And I do a lot of stuff where if I don't have to go through Home Assistant, like I won't do like, hey, if I'm going to turn on, like I'll show you like something here. You'll see a big mixture of stuff. Is like if I have, say, let's just say, let me go back to that bathroom stuff. And I have like, again, that time thing for finding organization is if I find like there's something, so like a message or whatever that I can get from MQTT, I'm not going to go to Home Assistant because Home Assistant gets it out of MQTT. I'm just going to go straight to MQTT because, again, the way mine's running, well, MQTT is a container, and then Home Assistant's a container. So it's like, why go from Node-RED to Home Assistant? That Home Assistant goes to MQTT. So I'm like, I want to skip the middleman and just go straight to the broker.
Are you running a separate broker?
Yeah. So yeah, you can actually see like right here in this one, you can see this purple little block. There's MQTT. So.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, essentially what Home Assistant does, I guess, for MQTT is it's a container in Docker or it's something. So I would say I'm probably running separate containers, just using MQ or Home Assistant to manage the containers or whatever. But
right, like say for instance, this right here, the warm white is. I don't want to go look up all the numbers and everything and the colors and Home Assistant and have Home Assistant turn that light on for me. And I find it really simple that, hey, this is a 5-channel light. And in my brain, it's simple. Hey, I want zeros, which is this red, green, blue, and then cool white, then warm white. And these are numbers 0 to 255. And so I just want 100 of warm white, and I know that's super simple to send, and I send that color command straight over to the Tasmota light bulb itself without going through Home Assistant at all.
So I have, this is very interesting because I don't have any dimmer things in my arsenal of stuff. I have a lot of those GE wall switches. I can turn them on and off, and that's all I can do. But I wonder, I mean, I'm curious what you're using for dimmable bulbs and individually addressable bulbs and stuff like that.
Well, that's actually where I started my YouTube stuff was, I know a few people know Dr. Z's, but so I talked with him several times. Well, I got this one dimmer, and it's funny now that so much I have just learned is if I can find, I do have it. I probably can just find the actual actual video instead. But it was I got this one dimmer from, let's see, from
And while you're looking for that, I'll just talk about
Yeah,
my
go ahead.
confliction with automation. Is I I came across Node-RED just on accident one day because I wanted to do something, and I'm a visual person, so I wanted to. I love being able to see my automations. In fact, I love being able to see when they fire off. Underneath, I can see what the node is doing. I have, but then I feel like, well, I should be as a person who makes videos about Home Assistant, I should be covering the automation part of Home Assistant, especially
Oops.
with the new updates where your Home Assistant or automation actually has an interface now you can use that is a UI versus just typing the YAML code. And so actually did a video on, like, I compared one of my more complex automations and tried to rebuild that in Home Assistant. And I just did it through the UI and it worked really well. So, but I most of my automations in Home is in Node-RED because it just seems to me like that. To me, I can just drag, drop, make things happen. It's visual. I can debug it that way real easily and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's, yeah, I'm a Node-RED fanboy.
Yeah,
No about it.
and there, and now also it didn't help at that time. I was actually helping with some development of on the work side of things with some business process management software. And basically what you would do, you would develop everything in a map and you would flow different things around where they went, and then you put the code in there. So I just finished helping with that. And so then I was like, I hit Node-RED and I was like, oh, this is like the same thing. It's just a little bit different language. So, but yeah, so this was my very first video, and it's funny that I look at things now and I see that I opened it up and it had the TYWE3S module, which is the ESP-8266, and I kind of knew that, but we didn't know about this secondary. There's a secondary serial controller that does like all the capacitive touch, because this one has. Let's see if I should show it somewhere. And there was no dimmer support inside of Tasmota at all. You had bulbs you could do, but there was no dimmers at all. And this was even before like templates or anything. I want to say it was like 5.x of something of Tasmota. And so I went through, and at first I did back up the chip in there, and then because I was like, there's something different about this one, because I flashed like light bulbs and relays and stuff like that. So I went through and I said, well, I'm trying to find all these GPIO pins. I was like, I'm not finding anything. And that's when I started digging through. I don't know if I showed a picture of it, but there's a secondary MCU. And I was like, well, wow, this is different. And so I started just doing some serial sniffing on it using, I forgot it was Real Term or something like that. And I found out there was like a 9600 baud communications between the ESP and this other chip. And that's when I put the stock software back on and I started controlling it. And that's when now we have there's the Tuya MCU stuff has just gone out with Federico, but I actually kind of hacked into Tasmota. I would say one of the first dimmers into Tasmota. And so we were able to pick the module type Tuya dimmer, and like this is like way back. You can actually see, and how to put the stuff in, and things have come so far. What's that?
Is that Windows 98?
Probably. I know it's Windows 3.11. No. But so I was just showing like, hey, this is like, because I wanted dimmers in Home Assistant to be able to control stuff without having to do the Zigbee or the Z-Wave thing. I wanted to do this with this ESP-8266. So it wasn't too bad. It took me about a weekend or so to reverse engineer the stuff off and on. And then I wouldn't say I'm not any pro Arduino coder, but I can hack away enough at it. And then I did the first pull request to it, which I figured Theo was going to say, oh, this is crap and send it back. But he accepted it, pulled it in, and then he did go later on, rewrite a lot of stuff of it and make it better. But then, of course, later on, it got rewritten to do even more stuff. So that's kind of my thing and I've been I have a lot of dimmers around, a lot of switches and stuff. And just because I like being able to dim bulbs, and I just think I don't, we run stuff not 100% all the time. And that's just what I prefer.
I wish that's where I start looking at some of this stuff. I tell you, the one thing that I don't have in my whole house, which it's one of my biggest annoyances, is I have no fan controls. And there are certain members of my household that think that if the fans aren't running, the house is not cooling down.
That's my wife.
And there's a manual that we got when we bought this house that talks about the fans. The only thing they do when you're not in the room is generate heat.
Yeah, well, and you cannot explain that to anybody. They're like, no, if you run the ceiling fan, that makes cool air, right?
So anyway, I want that stuff to turn off when I arm the alarm system in away mode. I want all of that off. I go around to every room. I don't live in a mansion, so it's not huge.
Yeah.
But I do have to go upstairs on the carpet, which means I got to take my shoes off to go up there. Go all the kids' rooms, turn all the fans off, make sure everything's turned off. And when I would just have the automation, in fact, I would shut it off unless you were in the room. I get up in the morning and the office fan's been on like high power all night. And I cringe at the amount of electricity that went out that fan motor while I was sleeping.
Well,
so
you may not, I would say, well, it's just the OCD thing. You realize that, hey, that was
bad.
That was wasted. I know some people say, well, no, it wasn't wasted. You converted the energy into something else. But that was energy you didn't need to spend on that fan, which then created heat in that room. So
turn the fan if you want to get technical and all this.
Yeah, I
don't know how long these fans will run. They're on 24/7 every day. I don't know at what point they just burn up.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned too when I put my water meter on there.
What's that?
One of the things I learned about with my water meter, I have those Flume water meters now, and people would leave the water on for like an extra 30 seconds. And I'm like, shut the water. Now I look at it, and it's like 1/1000th of a nothingness. I'm like, oh, I guess it's not that bad.
Yeah.
It helps me deal with my OCD by monitoring the power and water usage of certain things.
Yeah, and that's, well, I guess you're talking about fan stuff. That was one of my things as well. Was I had a two-way, two-way. I can't stand the freaking electrical terms of that. A three-way is called really with two switches. And I know there's a lot of electricians that'll say, yeah, that's because it's this way or whatever, and because of the poles. And it's so confusing to people. You're like, a typical person, you're like, hey, that's a three-way switch. They're like, no, it's two-way. I only have two switches. So, but I had one where the power was like on one side and it went to the other, and then I had a fan, and I wanted to be able to do a fan. So I'd use the iFan, and the problem was they had the iFan 03 or the 02. The capacitors were too big they were sized for 220, 240, whatever they use over in other countries. That's better, right? We won't start that. But so I did talk to, and I told IT, Sonoff, I was like, look, you need to make us a fan controller because you would even look on their Amazon and they would say, oh, the fan sucked because the fan controller sucked because medium and low were too slow, and they returned it. I'm like, if y'all made a fan, just swap out the capacitors like I did. And I showed them in the video. Well, then the COVID thing hit, but finally they did make one with the right size capacitors for us, for the US market.
What is this thing here?
That's the iFan 04. They call it iFan 04L, which it's the same thing as an iFan 03, but it just has the capacitors for 120 volts. Yeah. So
okay.
And now that's designed for the problem is, I'll tell you, this remote sucks. It's a 433
Would never have
megahertz
a remote
remote.
like that ever.
Huh?
That looks like a child's toy to me. I would never do that.
Yeah, and it has
Nice
some,
shiny
like,
one.
as someone put it in the comments, it has hieroglyphics, if I can say that word right. It's the most unuser friendly remote. Do not even try to use it. Don't have your significant other try to use it because it sucks. Do something else. So what I ended up doing was I actually did 2 dimmers that were just as Wi-Fi buttons per se, and that way everything was constant power. This was before device groups, and I could instantly look on the dimmer. It actually wasn't truly dimming it. I could see one dot, the middle dot, and then the upper dot. That was, hey, is it on low, medium, or high? And then I could do long press stuff to turn the lights up and down as well in the room. Because that's a big thing for me. My big thing is I don't want to remove any functionality while I'm trying to add functionality, which is I don't like to. I hear people like, well, I'll just tape the light switches. I cringe when I hear that.
Well, you can't. So one of the things, and I slowly boiled. That's a very bad term. So I slowly worked. I did things in a very slow manner to kind of get my wife used to how things work. And one of the things that was, she never told me this, but I knew that it would be a showstopper if I didn't do this the right way from the beginning. The switches have to work as switches. They have to.
Yes.
She has to be able to go into a room and turn a light on without telling some smart speaker to do it. So that's why I went with the switches I have. So taping a switch or whatever you said, that would never, ever, ever work. And so the fan switches would have to be in the same way. I need a fan switch. And I read about early Z-Wave fan switches that were noisy.
Yep.
I don't know what that means. Like they buzzed or did something. I'm not sure exactly what they were noisy about.
The problem is, and I know there's probably someone better in the chat, is when and I'm speaking about regular, I would say regular, but your mainstream fans in the US is you're gonna have the pull string. You have got the pull string for the light on and off, and then you've got off, low, medium, and high. Your 3-speed ceiling fan like Hunter, and there's all kind of different brands, but so if you look inside, there's actually that fan capacitor.
I love how you have a picture for everything.
Yeah. So there's that ceiling fan capacitor, right? And you'll see on there some people are like, well, my fan stopped working, and a lot of these will start bulging and they'll stop working. And there's like a run capacitor as well. And I think this one has a run capacitor and the 2 different speeds. And so it switches in the different capacitors to actually, and I don't cringe all the electrical engineers, if you switch in the capacitors to slow it down. And the problem is, and I've seen a lot of dimmers try this in the even the ESP, like whatever, Wi-Fi fan controllers, and they use PWM, which is pulse width modulation, that works fine with bulbs. But what it does, it makes that fan motor start humming real loud. And if the fan controller is not using capacitors, typically you got it upside down. I think
Upside down now?
Is it upside
backwards?
down?
It's probably backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, my video. Anyway, this is in the drawer for the fan we bought. I never installed it. It's a solid state fan speed control. So this fan, it's amazing. It's funny. I just can reach over and grab this junk out of the drawer. This is a Harbor Breeze, and it has like this little remote control thing for it. That button's green, so it's like, that's cool.
Now,
green screen jacks out.
Now,
and then it has the controller. I never installed this stuff.
And some of that's probably, if you did pop it open, you'd probably see something like the large capacitors inside. So a lot of those are okay, because all you're doing with those fan controllers is you leave the fan on high, which is a pass-through. It's not putting any capacitors in there. And you're simply just moving the capacitor over to, or capacitors over to the smart switch or remote control switch itself. Like,
Yeah, and we have the 4 position switches on the wall.
oh,
But
okay.
I've never replaced those with anything Z-Wave. And the comments I was making was because somebody said, and now I'm trying to open this thing. Somebody said that they cause, and I look at the comments here, that they cause the motor to be noisy or the switch to be. I don't quite understand what the issue was. I didn't want to spend money at the time on those switches when knowing that there was some sort of issue with that.
Now, some of them will actually have like the buttons on the wall, and they'll have like some low voltage wiring that goes to actually from there to the fan, and that's a little different. Now that
I think that's
one,
what this is.
that one looks like that's basically. I
Well,
bet you if you
it's the
opened it, there,
control. It's the other side of the remote control.
yeah, I bet you
So
if you did open that, there would be the capacitors in it. So it's just like pretty much an iFan, O3 or O4 or whatever it is, where it has a couple relays in it and some capacitors to switch in and out. So
Yeah, I'm trying to open it with it. If I can open it quickly. I'm trying to do it with a pocket knife because I don't have any screwdrivers up here right now. But
the fan controllers, that was a big thing to me. And now the only problem is with the iFan was, again, trying to add back that functionality of like, hey, I want to control it from the wall. And so that's where I found these little fan controllers that Treat Life, and there's another name that they always troll you with these weird names. This was a dimmer and a 4-speed fan controller, and it actually came with an ESP module in it. And they were pretty easy to flash, but unfortunately, one brand has changed to a non-ESP chip, and now you need to transplant those. So there are multiple ways to do your different fan controllers. So
does that fit in a 1-gang box?
yeah, it's a regular Decora sized, and it will fit in a 1-gang box. That, depending on, I mean, I don't remember being too in depth. And I know Patrick's talking about, he's got a GitHub where he has some stuff where he sends stuff to 433 megahertz, depending on some of the remotes that are in some of these fans. And that way you're not having to swap stuff out.
Interesting. Well, maybe I'll just kind of slowly work into that. By the way, I just stabbed myself. You don't open stuff with a sticking knife.
Oh, like
I'm trying to open this fan controller and see what's inside of it.
I'm sure you look at some of my older videos, you would see this Swiss Army knife that I would open stuff with, and I probably made a lot of cringeworthy stuff out of, but I do stuff with a typical spudger now. So
yeah, if I weren't live streaming, I'd go get a screwdriver. But I did a good job on that one. I can't really see what's in. I mean, there's a couple of caps in here, but I don't know what they're actually in this backward.
Let me pull up let me do this. Your video is a little bigger now. Let's see.
Oh, let me flip my video real quick, just 'cause that way it looks the right way.
Yeah. And like Jim saying, you'll open an artery and then you'll be.
Yeah, and you can't check it out. It's like
the
green screen is now greened out because it's yellow.
That one would probably work fine. It looks like that's the regular capacitors that that would flip into it. So it's the same. It's the same.
Even that size, those little narrow ones.
Yeah, I bet you that's the same type. It's just in a different package.
Yeah, and the wiring. There must be another. There's another password to get into this box. I'm afraid I'm gonna rip my finger off doing it, but there must be screws underneath this white label or something here too. So anyway, I have a controller. It's interesting that it's still sitting in the box, but it really is to replace the. So I wonder if this came with the fan, and it's got the capacitors in it, and it's designed to work with the remote control. Does that mean the fan is only relying on the dimmer switch in the wall to function, or does it still have to have that capacitor and you just swap it out with this thing?
I'm not really sure. I mean, it depends on how that is set up. I've seen some of them where they have the switch on the wall, and it was just some homes they had the switch on the wall, and they would actually stick the remote next to the light switch, and the light switch would actually turn the whole fan on and the light on and off. It was just one hot wire run to the fan, and you would just leave that on, and that's why they had the remote stuck to the wall, and that way you could change the speed or take it, to the nightstand or whatever. It's typically where it would be, where you're trying to change the fan speed or whatever. But then you run into that issue when now you took it off the wall, now you can't change the light, now you got to go over here, and it just, yeah.
I still think I want to, if we weren't, I want some fan things. I may just, it'll be part of my YouTube empire.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
hey, honey, I need to buy a switch for the fan so I can make a video.
Probably where I would start is go pull down the that shroud, that thing, on the top of the fan, and go look at what wiring is coming to your fan. That's the thing right there.
Yeah.
And some of the, if you don't like some of they like that fan controller I show with this dimmer, that one's designed for if you have two hots that are, you've got a hot for the light and a hot for the fan, and that way you can dim the lights and then change the fan speed. But not everybody has that, and then or you cannot run another piece of Romex or whatever wiring and say something like a now they have some Z-Wave, those I know Veli Reds, but those are like $80 for a fan switch.
That's the other reason I wouldn't buy those things. That's too expensive for a switch.
And so you can do, you could do like an iFan or something with some sort of, other little simple switch for a lot less if you just want to do that. So,
because I have a separate switch, light switch, and a separate fan volume control, a speed control switch. So I can do both. I mean, I just need a single switch for the fan without controlling the light, because I wouldn't be able to fill that other hole up with anything if I took that and combined it into a single switch.
Yep. So I guess that kind of leads into another, I guess one thing, if I get the right scene here, is I wanted to talk about doing, which is exactly what we're talking about here, is the device groups. Did you play with device groups a little bit in Tasmota?
I set one. I went in there and set option whatever it was, and but two of my switches now turn on and off together. I need to undo that because I don't want that to happen. It was super simple. Yeah. So, I have those three whole devices, and I put two of them on the same group.
So one thing I wanted to show is I have this little test board here, and let me put my video back up here. I think that's my video, maybe.
Read these comments. There are a lot of comments going on here.
Yeah,
I feel like I should be reading these.
They're really just talking about some of the stuff with the fan controllers and whatnot. I think it's kind of saying the same stuff, is just find out what you have currently. And the big key is what is the wiring in the wall, and then what is the wiring in the fan itself. That's the big key. So.
Hey, there's my "What Are We Fixing" guy that talked to me the other day and told me.
Yeah, Sir Goodenough. Yep.
Oh, that's who Sir. Okay, cool. Yeah, the retired. I need something to do guy.
Yep. So one thing that I don't have. So one thing I do like to do. This is my little test board I have that I've made up a good while back, and it's back, it's for me, but is basically this is. Really, I like to do like kind of the best of both worlds. In some rooms that we have, I don't do a whole lot of color light. Now, we mostly run cool white, but I do run some warm white. Some people have pushed me enough to, hey, that you should run warm white at some later hours. But again, I don't like the whole, you remove functionality. So if you put smart bulbs in there, I have to be able to control it at the wall, because you just can't undo 30, 40 years or whatever it is, however old you are, of pushing that, that light switch. Now, I know it's a little different. I grew up with a little typical toggle switches. But then I did switch to rockers. And so even the little buttons are kind of the same to me. But you got to be able to just, I don't want to have to, like you say, pull up, hey, tell this voice assistant or pull out my phone just to turn on the damn lights. I'm going to be done with it. So, Chris, I just look at one of the comments, Chris, meet Chris. So it's mostly Chris. I will put his link down, and I'll probably change the title up and stuff for you guys, but for the people that are watching afterwards. But this little test board is, I did kind of for, I know they're calling it my electrocution board, but actually I have, it's powered through this wire here, but this wireless plug is here.
Yeah, don't grab those metal things.
Well, it's not on. But the way I have this set up is this, like this, when I plug this in, it's constant. These plugs are constantly powered. And this was, if you can see it here under, this is my air gap. So I know when this is unplugged that I can work on anything except for, what's behind this plate here. And so I can work on any of the switch boxes, the bulbs, etc., because I can physically look and see this is air gapped. That's the kind of the way I designed that. But so what I did here is, in this situation I wanted to show, and it's not too hard to do, is I've got two smart bulbs, and these are both running Tasmota, and there's also, we got a smart switch over there that's running Tasmota, and basically everything will be powered on at the same time. So, I mean, the relay is not being used in the smart switch itself, because the power actually, if you can see here, is all comes, this is all going and wired together. So everything is hot at all times. So the way you got to kind of think about it is if you could either do two ways. You could have the smart switch where the relay stays on all the time and you decouple the relay. I know some Z-Wave switches can do that. And that way you never lose power to the light bulbs in the room. And then you're just basically using the button in the room that just sends a toggle to the light bulbs. And anybody else in the home knows no different, because the light switch on the wall still works and just sends the toggle back and forth. But yet you can still, hey, I want to turn on one bulb on warm white 50%. Oh, I want to turn on the other bulb at red 50%, or something like that. So you kind of have the best of both worlds. And then if you really wanted to, you could put a dimmer, but you don't have it actually dim. You never want to dim the smart bulbs, but then you can control the brightness of the bulbs on the wall. So that's what I was going to go through real quick here, and I'll plug that in right quick.
Yeah, I was curious about that too, because one of the reasons I didn't want to I've been thinking a lot about changing my light bulbs out just to have something to be colorable, like right. You have here, but to be able to keep somebody from, if somebody goes and flips one of my switches off now on the wall, then my bulbs are off and I can't control them individually. You have to go back and turn the switch back on. So it's interesting you're saying to just force the relay on or force it on all the time, or power. Like I couldn't do this right the way you're showing it here in the ceiling bulbs because they're already pre-wired in the house, right? Unless I'm missing a step here.
Well, there's two things you can do. And I know one of them is based on code in certain areas that you have to have a physical relay. But hey, if you're not getting your house inspected and it's in there, then that's totally up to you. You could actually take, and I have one here. This is actually a dimmer, but we'll use the same thing. So you could just take, just a regular capacitive, dimmer or whatever, and it's a 1 gang Decora. And this same stuff applies to probably any country, and depending on the wiring, of course. So this dimmer, you got your ground, and then so we'll take the ground and the neutral out of out of the aspect. Because everybody knows you hook your grounds up so nobody gets shocked, and then you got neutrals. So it's powered by the black wire, and that powers up the dimmer, what lets it get on the network and do the whole thing. Well, then the output, it goes to the light bulbs, is the red. So when you actually put this in the box, I just actually, instead of, because the light switch is in the middle, basically breaking the connection, right? Well, don't make it break the connection. Is wire up, when you're putting the light switch in, you can wire up where the lights are on all the time. So if the breaker's on, then the lights are on. The light sockets in the ceiling are on. Now, the bad thing about that is that, of course, they're going to have power on all the time. So if someone goes to change the bulb and they stick their finger in it, well, then they could get shocked. And that's the whole safety aspect of it. So if you really wanted to be safe and do it, you could just have the relay on all the time in Tasmota. And that way you could still, if you wanted to, you could probably go to the Tasmota page and say, turn the relay off, or whatever in Home Assistant, turn the relay off. But the button actually, when you push the button, would not toggle the relay. All it would do was send, say, an MQTT message or a trigger to an automation or whatever. And then that would send it to your bulbs to do a toggle.
Yeah, and someone said that, I think even here, is just keep the power, just leave the relay connected with Tasmota always on. Patrick said that. So
I'll tell you the downside of that is, if it's a light switch, hey, perfectly great. Wire it up like it is, because then, hey, if you want to change the bulbs and, you worry about shocking yourself, you can turn that relay off. I know that they tell you, I think actually if you look up some of that stuff, they tell you to turn the breaker off, even changing the bulb. I've seen that in some documents. But so on a dimmer, the problem with the dimmer is, and you can't turn this off in a lot of dimmers, it's built into the actual relay, the electronics. These will actually ramp up and then ramp down. And if you've got smart bulbs in it and you turn this actually turns off for some reason, well, then you're doing that triac dimming to your smart bulbs, which is, could be bad too, because they're not designed to be dimmed. It's like when you put some of those non-dimming LEDs in a dimmer, they start flickering real bad and going nuts, and they'll probably start buzzing and stuff like that. Well, same thing with some of these smart bulbs. So keep that in mind. If you do use a dimmer in this type of control, which I'm about to show, you probably want to bypass it.
Do you use dimmers on your wall switches?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because in one of my videos, actually I have two dimmers that are bypassed where they don't do anything. They're just really Wi-Fi buttons. And that's actually what I use to control my fan. You turn it off and on, it sends messages to the iFan controller, and then you push up and down, it changes the speed of the fan, and also the indicators change on here as the LEDs. I did a whole video on it. I did in a 3-way configuration.
Watch one of those videos.
So yeah, but I'm just going to keep it. We're going to keep it simple and do just a regular light switch. And used to, you have to do everything with well, you could do it with node red, but then you're kind of, hey, what if node red's down? Well, then that switch is down. But then, hey, let's move it where actually smart switches are smart. And you could do which I was real big on a lot of my previous videos, which I still am, doing rules in Tasmota itself, where you're doing hey, on this button, press, send this MQTT message.
That's what Sir Goodenough said.
Yeah.
Rules rule.
But then, of course, you're relying on MQTT to be I haven't really had any issues with MQTT being down. I mean, it's such a small thing. You can put an MQTT pretty much anywhere. But that weird chance that it's down, well, then it could, you wouldn't be up. Well, PCDM made a device groups, which uses UDP. Now, it still requires Wi-Fi, and it will send over the packets, and there's no rules. It keeps stuff in sync. It's pretty awesome to use the device group stuff. The only thing, of course, it does require Wi-Fi, but hey, if I don't have Wi-Fi, then probably, like I say, the power's probably been out for more than an hour anyway, and I don't have lights anyway. So, so it's just one of those cool things
if you
you
don't
can
have
do.
Wi-Fi, you got bigger problems.
Yeah.
Kids' tablets aren't working. They can't get on the video games. There's no streaming freaking TV. I mean, yeah, go outside and play. You don't need no lights.
Yep, that's it. And that's actually, I was just thinking, Patrick, using TAS mesh to do device groups. That I was just thinking that very thing. So let me find. I bet you I don't have. I gotta set this one up right quick. But I'll show the whole parts of. Okay, so I do have this one set. Let me pull up my Zoom.
Steve is saying, would you recommend building automations in Node-RED that bypass Home Assistant? Node-RED is already a standalone thing, even in Home Assistant.
That's where we kind of get with. That's where the confusion lies. Is with the HAS OS. That's just the supervisor, or I don't call it, I know Caleb was saying, well, I just call it supervisor, which I do sometimes. It's just that it's a container itself, and all those add-ons are mostly just Docker containers. Now,
they're exactly what they are.
If all of that's down, well then, and a lot of people say, well, hey, if I shut down Home Assistant, MQTT's down, and Node-RED's down, and everything, well, that's if you shut down the whole HAS OS, and then that stuff comes down. So there's nothing stopping you from, for instance, you could have on one Raspberry Pi or other Ubuntu machine or something, you could put Node-RED and MQTT by themselves on some total different piece of hardware and then put Home Assistant over here. So it's really however you want to design your system to run.
That's one of the biggest things with the Z-Wave stuff that has happened in the last few updates is that it used to be when you restarted Home Assistant Supervisor, your whole Z-Wave network went down.
Yeah.
And it takes a while for it to come back up and everything to mesh together and figure out where everybody is. Yep. Now, when you restart it, it's its own container. It just doesn't get restarted.
Right.
And that's a big thing that I would definitely, that's a definite plus. And I think these containers are all pretty much the same thing as well. They do the same stuff. So yeah, all these applications like Node-RED and Grafana and Influx, those are all things that will run by themselves on standalone hardware, and you can make them talk to each other if you want to run a server for each one or a VM for each one or whatever. I mean, that's the beauty of it. You can do it however you want to.
Yeah, see, that's what like Sir Goodenough saying his MQTT runs on its own Pi with a couple other Docker containers, so he doesn't even mix it up with Home Assistant.
Yeah. I used to run what's that free MQTT before I knew anything. Way back in the day, I had there's a MQTT on the internet in the cloud or whatever.
Oh,
that you could run.
Yeah,
it's still there. You just create your own MQTT broker out there on the internet. You could even run one off site and come back. I wouldn't do that necessarily because you're relying on the internet, but
yeah. And see, Xavier showing a thing. Actually, what I've actually switched over is I actually use a lot of local DNS records on my MQTT instead of putting those hard-coded IP addresses in. So if I ever wanted to change where my MQTT is at, and I know people probably laugh at me, but in Discord we talk about it. Well, if I change the location of where the MQTT is at, I'll just go out to the breaker and pull the main breaker, count to 10 and turn it back on. That reboots all of my Tasmota devices, and they'll pick up that new DNS, that new IP, they'll get on the Wi-Fi, and they'll be on that new MQTT broker without me reconfiguring 80-something devices.
That's nice.
So basically, in the switch, and I don't know if you probably can't see it, the LED because of the lighting, but
I see purple and white.
Huh?
Blue and white.
Yeah. So and I can hear the relay. We have the relay clicking right now, and so if I push the button, it's going to turn the relay on and off. Now, I'm not doing the configuration. I guess we could if we did like we did the bypass the relay, but I will bypass the relay and show you how that's done. And so the way that to bypass the relay, and there's a set option that is, it's set option, which is SO 73.1, and I just didn't pull that out of my, it's out of here. There's the big thing of set options. It's it enables multi-press, and it decouples the relay. It's for buttons. And if you rebooted the switch, you would actually see in Home Assistant, you would see the, so if we did restart one, if you're using the Tasmota integration, you would actually see in there, there would be now triggers for building automations straight into Home Assistant of like, hey, what happens when you short press, long press, multi-press twice, 3 times, and you could just build an automation off of it straight using the little GUI thing. But I'm not wanting to do that here because we're not wanting to, involve Home Assistant at all. So actually now, if I push the button once, you see I get the single. And let me zoom this in a little bit. So you see I get the button 1 action single. Well, if you push it twice, you'll get the double. I get the quad, and you can also do long press. The default is 4 seconds, which is way too long. But if you do the long press, so that allows you to actually do off of 1 light switch, you could do 6 actions off of 1 button. So in here is, now we want to control those light bulbs, which I do have them dimmed way down because I didn't want to blow out the camera and everything, is if you go into, and you're going to set, there's a dev group name, and I'm just going to call it test boards. And there's actually, without jumping in, there's dev group name. If you just type dev group name, if you're ever curious in Tasmota of, hey, well, what is a setting set to? Just type for the most of them, you just type the option, the command, it will show what it's set to. So we have 4 dev group names, and dev group name, I'm gonna do dev group name 1, and we'll just say test board. And we'll set that one to test board. And I think it restarts the ESP. And let me find 198, 143. And okay. So these are these 2 bulbs here. You can see this is that white one. And then this is that like bluish or whatever, right? And if you come in and also do dev group name 1, if you don't put the 1, it defaults to 1. And I believe it is case sensitive. So we're going to set all of those to test board. And where's this one at? I need to drag these 2 together because I'm not going to get confused on my tabs. Everybody's rebooted. Let me zoom in so everybody can see. And now, whenever you do, well, we would have to do a rule. So I want to show you how, without doing the rule, I do need to put this back. And there's a couple different ways, and I'll kind of get to, we're going to put the relay back into play here. And so as of now, when I do press the button, it should do the relay. Yeah. Okay, I hear it clicking. If you turn on SO85.1, which is set option 85, and you turn that, and what that does, that enables the device groups on that device. And I'm also going to enable the same thing on the light bulbs. And you should see them probably restart, or they might flicker. And I will go over a couple different ways without going down the big rabbit hole. I want to show you real simple how this is. So now we have the light, and you also notice the light bulbs have synced up in color.
Yeah, I was going to say it changed colors.
Right. Because everything is in sync. If you look at there's the commands down here. There's the dev group share. And I'm going to show dev group share, and this can get to be a big rabbit hole, but I'm going to go real simple on these. Is basically anything that what the FFF means in FFF, anything that comes in, it's basically it's the input and the output. So it's going to accept any commands in the dev group. It's also going to send out any changes, any and all changes. And I bet you these are all set by default the same exact way. So you'll notice if I do turn off one of the bulbs, that the others turn off, the other one turns off immediately. You'll also notice it turned off my light switch. And so if I go, this is the other bulb, if I toggle it on, so now it's keeping all three in sync. And you can notice I didn't do any rules or anything. All I did was set the dev group name on every single one of them and then turned on dev groups, and they automatically sync everything together at one time. So there's no MQTT involved here. There's no Home Assistant, Node-RED. It's all handled through UDP between the actual Tasmota devices.
So do you have to set, so I did this without even setting the name. Does it matter to set the name? Because when I did it, it just worked.
I've never tried to not set the name. I didn't know that was I didn't know you could do that.
I just turned on the option, and then I just turned one of the switches off, and they both went off. So I think even without the name, it worked.
I guess it maybe uses just the name of blank as the dev group.
Yeah, which I mean that could lead to problems, right? I recommend naming things so you know what they are, but
yeah. So like as Stone is talking about doing dev group share -1 same exact thing. And I'm just looking in the wiki on Tasmota for the device groups. And I did a whole video way back on this, but they didn't have the dev group name. They changed it a little bit after that video. But the dev group share, you can either do the -1s or you can do the 0. And they actually talk about that here of, I want to say it used to be in here. Maybe they changed it up a little bit, but the in and out, they talk about for like doing like light bulbs. Yeah, here it is right here. If you're using to turn on individual light, change the colors and brightness, you may not want the incoming and outgoing all the same. So you'll set the outgoing, and actually you can just copy this command here. I'm a big copy and paste guy. So what that's going to do on the bulbs is if I set dev group share on each one of the bulbs, and you'll notice it set, hey, I'm not going to send any packets out. So what that allows me to do is if I come over here and turn the light switch on and off, it's going to turn both lights on and off. No problem. And these aren't physically connected in any way. This could be, you could do this where you have a light switch in one part of the house and then turning on a light clear across the other side of the house. Like say, for instance, I've seen it done with like floodlights that have constant power. And so
it's doing this over Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah, so it's using UDP. Now the cool thing is I could open up Home Assistant, or I could do it right here, is I could come in here and change one of the bulbs, say I'm going to change this, it's probably getting very blown out. Let me just see. Let's see, just do 100. Yeah. So now you can see I changed one of the bulbs to a different color, and I could also come in here and turn off which one did I change? This one right here. I could turn this one off. So in the room, if I just wanted just one bulb on warm white, I could do it. And the cool thing is I could still come over here and push the button and toggle the lights on and off. And now of course it's keeping them kind of all in sync with the dimmer, but it's not sending, because not the dimmer, the light switch doesn't have a color. So it's not going to send a color to it. And so it just sends a toggle, and then so they stay that same color. But again, you're not removing that functionality of being able to change them from the wall. And you're not going to piss anybody else off, but yet you can still take and dim stuff, whether you want to do, cool white, warm white, whatever it may be in the room.
So when you started off with doing the toggle, and it turned both those bulbs on and off. But as soon as you change the color, it only turned one of them on and off. So what did I miss there? Did you change a command while I was not looking?
No. So we have this bulb here, and I'll change this one as well let's do 50,000. Okay. So then you can kind of see a different color. And you can independently, now if I did not have that dev group share set, is if I went and changed one bulb to green, it would change the other one to green because it has the outbound turned on. Right. Well, I turned the outbound off. I thought
when you first set that to the dev group share 0 or whatever that was,
right,
it turned the lights on and off, but it didn't change the colors.
Right.
Now it doesn't seem to turn them on and off.
Because the switch doesn't have a color. It's just a binary. It's an on or off.
I thought you did it with the lights.
No, now we can do that. So of course, if I come in here and turn off, well then it turns, and it keeps the color. And you'll also notice that if I did turn off one, well, what happens is when I turn off, it's going to send an off command. Well, one's already off, so it sends that one off. And then when I turn the switch back on, it sends an on command to both bulbs.
This would be quite useful, I guess, in the case of, in my kitchen, I have like the ceiling lights. If I replace those with these lights here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 of those lights. I can't remember, but you could set a group, because I would want those all to come on. They come on now with a single switch.
Right.
It's the counter lights, basically, or the island lights. I want them all to do that. It'd be handy as a use case to be able to set this dev group up just to control those lights by themselves as a group.
Yeah, I did, like, one of my very first big projects I did at a family member's house. We actually put 6 can lights, or down lights, whatever you want to call them, and they're RGB, W lights. And it was in a 3-way, and I used 2 dimmers. This was before device groups, and I had rules in the dimmers that would send commands back and forth, but yet it still allowed them to do independent light changes for, like, if they're watching TV, they just wanted lights behind them, they could change colors, etc. But then they could still push the dimmer buttons up and down, and it would change the current color brightness without changing the color, and they could turn them on and off at the wall. The only thing we just didn't do at that time was make it where you could change the color, which they didn't really care about. So
yeah, need to get myself about 100 color bulbs. Where can I get those in bulk?
So the ship is kind of sailed on doing the 2-year convert on the bulbs for putting Tasmota on them. They do have the guy Atham. He actually has pre-flashed bulbs and switches and stuff like that. And I talked about that in one of my transplant videos. He did give me a code to use. I think it's 15% off. They do have some of them is actually out of a US warehouse as well. And so yeah, they have some, and actually that's what these bulbs are. One of them is the smaller one, the larger one's at 15 watt. But they come with Tasmota already on them, and you can see he does the whole, like here's how you do the set options and everything. So.
Yeah, so I guess this is one of those, just because you can, should you do it? Someone's commenting here about Davin. That's right. Smart bulbs are for accents, not main overhead lights. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will, and here's that coupon code he gave me. I don't know how long that's going to work for. But is the thing is, color, 99% of the time I don't use color. It has to be some weird thing we got going on. But I do agree with being able to doing the whole circadian lighting stuff that people do, where you want cool white during the day and then you want the warm white. Well, you just can't do that unless you have smart bulbs. And I like being able to have, I've got 6 downlights in my living room. I like being able to just turn one on. And I just want one on at 25%. That's what I do. So
you can make a nice night light out of that for like the kitchen.
That's exactly what I do in some of my automations. Is once the lights, we set the alarm and it kind of goes to a different state. The lights turn off, but then when you walk in that room, well, then we turn on one of the down lights in the living room at like 10%, and that's the automated lighting, so you can walk through that room. So. But yeah, exactly what Steve is saying. For me, RGB is not really that useful in a lot of cases. But I use it for accent lighting to call out different things in videos. That's a little too big of a rabbit hole. But I don't think we may not get time to do it. If Steve talks about, you can also do Zigbee or Z-Wave bulbs as well the same way. And if you think about it, because it's all MQTT, and you wouldn't be able to do device groups this easily, you could do some rules or automations to do the same thing with mixing, say, Wi-Fi stuff and Zigbee and even Z-Wave or however you want to do it.
I think that there's a return on your investment when it comes to the smart bulbs, because they're still not cheap. I mean, compared to, I guess LED bulbs are, if you buy a decent LED bulb, they're probably pretty close to these.
Yep.
But still, it's still expensive, and I think what I'd like to do in the bathroom, we have these fixtures that are like three stinking bulbs at a time.
Yep.
And they all come on just blasting away in the morning, and what I end up doing is turning on the closet light if I go in the bathroom, so all I get is the light from the closet coming out into the bathroom because it's too bright in the morning. So I could see a use for that if I could automate that so that the acceptance factor would let that run. There's some of that stuff that I would like to do more of. Get a little more creative, make my house a little smarter in that regard. I do a lot of on-off stuff, and a lot of, I don't have to go turn lights off on the alarm sets. It just does it all for me. A few times it's closed the garage door because we forgot about it.
Yep.
It's locked the doors. I mean, all these things that you do that kind of what did somebody say in the chat? It's you're not making it smart. You're just making it controllable or something like that.
Yep. Well, and you talk about the price of bulbs, and I know some people have even found these even cheaper at some of their local. These are 60-watt tunable, so they do warm white and cool white. There's Zigbee bulbs, 60-watt equivalent. And you can get, they're $5 a piece. Now, some people have actually found them on the aisles of $5 for a 2-pack. These are Zigbee bulbs. They work with ZHA, work with Zigbee to MQTT, and they're warm white and cool white. And there's no flash in them or anything. It's Zigbee. Just take it out and pair it and go. Well, just do what you want to do. So,
are they smart bulbs, or are they just like, how do you said there's so you dim them from Zigbee too, right?
Yeah. So I have some here, but they're fully controlled. You can see there are, you can do whatever shade you want. So they're warm white and cool white. And so you can set the color temperature, and then you can set the dimming level as well. So, and as long, of course, you will need a Zigbee coordinator, and then whether you want to run ZHA or Zigbee to MQTT or whatever. So,
threatening it in my live streams and videos to run that I should be running Zigbee. I should play around with it at least. I don't have it right now.
I was again, the Zigbee stuff I played around with, and I just didn't have some good experiences. And then when I got the Zigbee, that Sonoff IT Zigbee bridge, I got into that, and I had a lot of battery powered sensors, and I had issues with not having signal, so it allowed me to place that in one area. And then a lot of the people were like, hey, you should get and go to Zigbee to MQTT, mainly Matt, Teddy. And then I got a real coordinator, the 2652 series. I did a whole little video series on that, and it's running Zigbee to MQTT in its own container. And then you can just, it uses auto discovery. So there's no doing any YAML code or anything. So once you just pair it in Zigbee to MQTT, it pops straight into Home Assistant. And it's the same thing. It's kind of like Z-Wave. Right now? Huh? What's that?
You're running that in production right now?
Yeah. So this is all the Zigbee stuff I have out here.
You got more. You got as many Zigbee as I have Z-Wave.
And this is, you can do the little mesh map type thing. And they have power monitoring plugs, and you can get, like you say, some of the Zigbee stuff is super cheap. It's a lot of times a little cheaper than Z-Wave. Now there's pros and cons to Z-Wave, but that's the whole deal there. But
well, the Zigbee stuff I haven't touched because of all the stuff I've heard about how unreliable it is if you don't have a really good coverage area for it. Like like that controller, I need to look at what you're talking about, because I would have just gotten one of those Nortec or whatever.
Don't do that.
That's a great expression. That says, you betcha, don't ever touch that.
Hey, if you want to run a Nortec so bad, I'll send you one. You can have it.
Is it that bad?
Yes. Yes.
So what is this controller you're talking about? Is this standalone device?
There's a couple things. And I hate to
maybe
do
I should just watch your video on it and not.
Yeah, there's a whole. This guy's out of stock on a lot of his stuff. A lot of times, because there's such a high demand, is this chip here. I don't know if you can you may read it. Some people can read it. It's made by Texas Instruments. I believe so. It's the CC 2652. And let's just say it's the Cadillac, as of this time, the Cadillac of all Zigbee coordinators. It's a quick processor, and it pairs right up with Zigbee to MQTT. You can use it with ZHA, and there's a lot of different people that have them. So Zigbee to MQTT, it's an add-on as well as a container. Great little project. And then this is kind of my video, so I'm gonna go real fast. They have a whole thing of all the devices it supports, and it's all straight, like it's kind of like on their project. So when someone adds support for a device, and it's really easy to add them actually. But what it says, what do you need? I need a supported Zigbee adapter. There's several different ones out here, but stick with the CC2652 series. Some of these are from overseas. You'll have the buy links over here, and some of them are from US. But
use that controller that you're talking about.
They go out of stock fairly quickly. It's just, I'm resizing the window so people can see. I just noticed. Sorry about that. But yeah, so you can there's all kinds of stuff. I really recommend the Zigbee to MQTT over ZHA. I know some people like ZHA, but I know there's decons and the Con B2, but those are other things. I just like the Zigbee to MQTT. So that's just my opinion. It's not the best, but best for me.
Running Z-Wave to MQTT.
So yeah, that's before we got off on the whole thing of that. We got way off on that. Someone was asking, how can you send to put them back to white this is kind of what I would do, is how would you put them back to white on that same switch? Yeah. Oh, wow. You use actually two networks of Zigbee. I know of people that actually have like 3-story, like, basement, first story, second story, and you'll run one network, and you just have to be able to jump. But I don't know if you have like a lot of Faraday cage stuff going on. So, so let me wrap this up real quick. So I wanted to show, I think it was Rick or Rich that was asking about this. He was asking about not doing it with a rule. To not do it with a rule, that would be difficult to do. You would have to do that with Node-RED or Zigbee. I'm not Zigbee. Node-RED or Home Assistant, and do off a trigger. So then that kind of puts you back into doing that home automation, piece back into it. So, yeah, Jesse, let me wrap this up. We'll jump right back into Zigbee stuff. We'll get there. So, so what I like to do is, if you wanted to do that set option 73, which does that decouple, but then you have to couple things back. So you'll say rule 1 on button 1. Look, you can see I've actually typed it. On button 1, state equals 10. That's going to sync the single press, and that's going to still do that. That's going to toggle the relay itself. And there's another way, which I'll show you in a second, to actually bypass the relay. And then we'll do on, and this is where y'all going to make me stumble, is, unless Stone's in here, that you can actually do a dev group send, and you actually send different commands, and you can send colors and brightness, but it gets to be a bit of a rabbit hole with some of the different commands and stuff you can send to actually do the white. Whether you want to send the commands, and you can send the light, as you see, it's fade, brightness, or fixed color, and you can send the color values. But I'm not going to sit here and figure those out, the whole thing. But basically, you would want to do, unless they have an example that has set the color to red, inform the group not to be shared until changed. Yeah, see, it can be, this is like set fixed color and decrease the brightness by 10. It's like there gets to be a little bit of a rabbit hole, some of the commands to send this stuff across. We can try this one. We can share it. We'll try this one and see what happens. Where's my window again? So we'll do on button 1 state equals 11. That's the double press, and we'll do that dev group send end on, and then rule 1 turn it back on. So we should be able to do a single press. It turns things off, and then the double press, it's not sending, apparently I got something wrong with that command. It's not actually sending that command wrong. I just copy and pasted it out of the wiki. That's just something wrong with the wiki. I don't know, let's see. A lot of times I'm doing these rules, if you can just paste stuff in here and not have to. I wonder if that's the N or something with the that's what it is. That something with that N. So you could change the rule. Let's see, rule 1. Let's spit that back out. Let me fix that right quick.
They're saying DevGroupSend 1 versus DevGroup.
See, the chat's always really good and helpful on this stuff.
When I'm doing live streams, I sit there and I just say, someone will figure it out 30 seconds later, because that's the delay in the live stream. They'll be bouncing their head, no, and then it takes 30 seconds for me to see the answer they're trying to tell me. So just to show, we'll set this, we'll set these back to, that's way bright.
We'll find some color or something. I know it's hard to see, but so then we should be able to do a double press. One of them's not taking it. Unless it's already on that color or something. The dev group shared allows anything on there, Stone. So now sometimes if you're like me, I just kind of my OCD kicks in and I'll just send over MQTT and send over a command and call it a day because my MQTT is rarely ever down. So that's a lot of times I'll do something like that and just send to like the group topic through using MQTT. So there's all kind of ways to do it.
So in a situation like this, when let's say you have 20 bulbs in your house or whatever, like you wouldn't necessarily manage these individually like this, right? You would go into like TDM or something and look at how you have it set up or somewhere, because I can imagine going in here and trying to set this all up, either that or looking at it through like Node-RED automation or something, because there's just so much.
Well, see, I'm just doing things individually, one at a time. So I just do. So if I'm just setting, like, I don't have like 20 bulbs I'm trying to do at one time configured for one switch. I may have three or four in like a light fixture at most. Or if I have like a bunch of can lights, I've got like say 6 or 8 or something like that, but I've never had like 20, and I'll just open up a bunch of tabs and copy the stuff to it. And it's not too bad to do.
So if you want to go back, and I guess there's been instances where I forget, well, what happens? Like I have on my desk here, I have one of those Z-Wave switches that has 5 buttons on it, like the main relay button and then 4 others.
Yep.
And I can double press that. It puts my whole house into what I call work mode, and then my smart speaker announces it's in work mode.
Yep.
It locks the doors and everything and gets all the lights set when no one's down there. But I forget sometimes, and I have another switch that if I double press it, it's similar to that, but I'll double press it and it will turn all the lights on in the house. And I forget which thing I push, which button does what kind of stuff, right? So when you're managing all these things, like you just go back sometime, you use it enough to know, I guess.
I have this in my living room, and it allows you to still toggle, like you just replace your switch with it. And this is why, Tasmota based, and each of these buttons you can double press. So you can actually have 14 actions off of this thing. And there's no way. Now I use Node-RED to say, hey, what am I doing on each button? But I'm not gonna pull up Node-RED, and it's like the wife's like, well, what is that to turn on number 1? And yeah, you got to make some labels or something, because I'll even forget, because there's no way I can do like, well, okay, double press number 3 was to do this, and yeah, it's confusing.
That's why I haven't installed this anywhere in the house, because I don't know how to label the thing.
Yeah,
and make it do something. The Z-Wave one, I forgot in my video on it. I talked about how many options there were. I think there's probably 20 different options on button presses. You have long presses, short presses. You can go up to quad presses on each button. So that's 4 times 4. That's 16, 20 button presses just for quad presses. 3, triple presses, double presses, single presses, long holds, short hold. I mean, yeah, there's just no way you could ever keep up with it.
What I did, the basis, a lot of my stuff is even before multi-press, and I still do it today, is my regular light switches, we do short press and long press. I don't do a whole lot of multi-press unless I really need like a third action. But for the most part, I'm doing like for instance, in my son's room, that, when we go put him to bed, and I just hold down the middle light switch, and that puts his room into to night mode. And it'll turn down some of his lights, and then 30 minutes later, it turns them down even more. It turns off his main light, turns his fan on medium, kind of sets it up. And then also plays like a random goodnight message to him on the Google speakers. So
nice.
But I'm not going to remember, hey, push the second light switch and do a quad press. I cannot remember that.
Yeah, they're nice, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Just get one button and tap out the command in Morse. I know Morse code.
Yeah.
I had to learn that stuff.
So I guess back to the Zigbee stuff is I know someone was asking about some of the adapters of the Zigbee to MQTT IO stuff. So a lot of the adapters you'll find on there, which you'll find the one that Ethernet one by Tube. He also has a PoE one. They're all going to be CC2652, but I will tell you they go out of stock very quickly. I want to say last time he had some stock, check his Twitter page. They were gone like in like 10 minutes. So
Why are these things? Is it because of the supply chain issues, or just people like it so much?
yeah, they're great controllers, and they're really reliable, and just again trying to get that CC2652. There is, I don't know, I haven't checked them in a while. You can buy these big dev boards, the same thing. TI has them in stock. I don't know if they're actually, so TI has them in stock. But it's of course a big dev board that it's actually, I show it in one of my intros in my video, but you get, and then it doesn't come with a case. You got to 3D print you a case. So yeah, it's a massive, but it does the same thing. And if you can't get one, then then you want one, that's your choice, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. So.
Except for what you said, where you got to print a case for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's time that I play with little Zigbee just to get some cheap bulbs, because the Zigbee stuff is actually less expensive than Z-Wave. In fact, a lot less expensive in some cases.
I mean, on let's see. They just came out with these. A singlet power. Let's see. I think it's just we'll do probably plug. They just came out with these, and they're actually pretty good in their size. They
it looks exactly like the cloud-free plug that I was looking at.
or the Sonoff S31, and like I even told Sonoff or IT, whatever you want to call them. It's like, hey, we need in the U.S. North America market, we need a power monitoring plug that you can fit 2 in 1 socket on the Zigbee side. They have the Sonoff S31 Zigbee, but it's light. There's no power monitoring. And it's like people want a power monitoring plug on the Zigbee side. And, well, Singled stepped up to the plate, and they knocked it out of the park with this guy. I've got a couple of them, and they work great.
Yeah.
So... yeah, and it's, of course, it's on the Zigbee side of things, and they pop right into to Home Assistant. I was copying a link for somebody. So if we do open up, let's see. So I can get this to pop in here. Like I've just my naming convention I've done. See that this Zig Singled Power 1, and it has the wattage and it has the kilowatt hours. I must have that's just the link quality. And so you can see to turn the power on and off, which you can also see that same thing from the Zigbee to MQTT. If you go to the actual dashboard, let's see, Singled Power, and you can actually see it exposes the same thing. And it's just going through it, and it does auto discovery. So as soon as you pair something into Zigbee to MQTT, and you just hit the, kind of like with Z-Wave, you put it in the pairing mode, and then you put the device in the pairing mode, and it just pops up on the list. And by the time it pops up in the list in here, you flip over to Home Assistant, it's sitting there as an entity with all the things. So
I mean, to me, this is very similar just to Z-Wave stuff.
Absolutely.
I don't expect to have any issues pairing things.
Absolutely.
But again, you're going to have range issues, right? If you have one device. Does Zigbee act as repeaters for their power devices?
Most of them, yes, and that's what this map was. So as I talked about earlier, your your battery powered ones. They're Zigbee, so the battery probably lasts over a year, 2 years, whatever it may be, just like Z-Wave. but they're not going to. That's like these reads are they're endpoints,
And you
and
wouldn't want them to be repeaters either, right?
they're not going to repeat. Now you can see this patio floodlight is, of course, it's always on, so it's routing messages. And then same thing with, like that, I just showed that singlet plug. It's also routing messages. And of course, there's all kind of routes. And so it's the same thing as Z-Wave, where you're building that healthy mesh. If you don't have that healthy mesh, then you're just not going to have a good experience with Z-Wave or Zigbee.
Right. My controller for Z-Wave is sitting down underneath my feet, basically on the wall here. It's the farthest away from anything. But I have stuff around here that's meshed with it, and it works just fine. I've never had, knock on wood, ever any issue with coverage. In fact, it's funny that I'll see stuff in the very front of the house connected on the map to like the door lock in the back. Like, how in the world does it skip all the stuff in between and go straight to the door lock?
And I'll say some of that, the route, it's just like, that's a snapshot in time. That routing can change in a heartbeat. I know a lot of people get hung up on the maps and, well, hey, no, I got low signal here and everything. And like, I would totally expect that this line from my coordinator over to that patio floodlight to suck, because it's going through so many walls. I'm really surprised it even listed as a route. And
it's not the only route, right? Like there's dotted. What do the dashes mean? Primary or backup route?
Yeah. I guess that's just any route it can take. And
if you look at Z-Wave, if you look at any node in Z-Wave, it gives you all the neighbors.
Yeah.
And there's like 20 neighbors listed for half of my node. So it just has paths. It can go all over the place.
Yeah, it's the same type deal. And it's just the only thing, of course, now with Z-Wave, you're going to get more of that where they have to certify the devices. Now, some of that is changing with the Zigbee Alliance. It's better. But there will be some that just, some weird, like especially the Tuya Zigbee devices, they're really a pain in the ass. So
I think that's where I've heard a lot of comments too. Not only the mesh, but some of the devices just aren't built well. They just don't function. They just don't work well.
Yeah, and I will say, and I love a lot of most of Sonoff IT's products, from their switches, but I will say their not the humidity temperature one, the motion sensor and their door sensors for Zigbee side, they suck. Don't get those.
Really?
Yeah, on the Sonoff IT Zigbee side, don't get their motion or their door sensors. The battery brackets aren't designed well. They have some cool down issues with the motion sensor. Yeah, they're weird. Now, I know Sir Goodenough's talking about Aquaria stuff. Aquaria kind of does a weird thing, but I haven't, for the most part, had issues with the Aquaria Zigbee stuff. They can be difficult to pair up sometimes. But yeah, you can get a lot of cheap like remotes and bulbs from like IKEA. If you have one locally or order them, they do a lot of Zigbee stuff. Amazon has, so like there's like the Lin kind has, you can get, and sometimes you can get it on sale. Like look like this, for instance, right here. You can get a Zigbee button, and I want to say you can short press and long press, and you get a light bulb. I think this is tunable. It's a warm white and cool white light bulb for $10. I don't know if, is this one just, don't quote me on that. I don't know if it's warm white and cool white. I don't see color. No, this one is just warm white. But you can get a Zigbee button and a Zigbee light bulb for $10. So, and once you pair that up with Zigbee to MQTT or ZHA, you can use that button for whatever you want. You know?
I mean, the possibilities with this stuff are endless. I mean, just the imagination for most of it, and just getting, I wonder, well, I can tell you probably there's no, I mean, this is probably a dumb statement to make, but there's probably nobody out there who has exactly the same setup for anything on any I mean, of
No,
all of us that do this kind of stuff, there's nothing the same. Everybody has their own
no,
parts and
because
pieces, and
there's, I mean, th- I know I have a lot of Tasmota devices, and I know people that have more than I have 85. They're in here right now in Tasmo backup, and I have a lot of ESP home stuff as well. And it's not everybody's gonna have the same exact stuff.
a lot of backup files. You
Huh?
really, that's a lot of backup files.
They're what, like 4 kilobytes or something?
Yeah. I mean, you go back 289 revisions back and
That's
and
it.
restore that one.
That's it. See, look, I can go back. It's all about history. When did I start using that device? See?
Really? Okay.
No, I don't. I rarely ever go back to it. I should probably put if I put a limit, I'd probably put like 30 or something, probably. So, yeah, there's more small files.
But you're storing this on your Unraid stuff too, right? So you probably got some storage.
Yeah, so this actually gets stored in a Docker container folder on Unraid, which is on an SSD. But then also I do have a backup that copies it locally somewhere else. Plus I do have an automated backup with encrypted with the cloud where it will pick up, which is funny, it'll actually pick up these files and version them as well if I need to pull them out of the cloud. So
Oh wow.
I pay like
So I
$10
run.
a month for that. I've got like 4 terabytes of stuff up there. So
Where do you stick that stuff at?
that's using the Crash Plan Pro, which is another Docker container.
Okay.
And
I run a Synology NAS, and both my Raspberry Pi 4 and my Blue go to the NAS, and then the NAS is actually backed up to Amazon Glacier.
yep,
Costing like $1 a month or something. The only problem with Glacier is you can't do, it's an all or nothing. If the NAS burns up in a fire or blows up, then I can restore everything in one shot. You can't individually select files with Glacier. It's just an all or nothing
yep.
restore.
See, I don't have too many. I have a couple things in ESP Home, nothing crazy, some sensors and stuff. A little Bluetooth gateway for picking up those little Xiaomi sensors, and the doing like the power monitoring stuff for that's feeds this here, which does the like my circuits and stuff for different stuff in the breaker box, which is that whole home power monitoring stuff, which then it feeds into Grafana. Kind of the same. You've probably seen some of this stuff before with different.
Oh yeah.
Is being able to drill down and see exactly, what different circuits and stuff and different things. So.
So how are you monitoring this individual circuits? Is it just the plugs?
Yeah, well, they're
No, it wouldn't be
CT
plugged.
clamps. They're actually in the
You have room to put a bunch of clamps in the box?
Oh yeah. My box is the breaker box, actually kind of on the small side as well. So it's basically, this isn't mine, but this is the product I'm using. It's a board you put an ESP32 on top of, and you can stack these boards for how many different channels you want. Each board is 6 channels. And here's someone's breaker box. If I can go back.
So yeah, that's what I was envisioning. Just all that stuff all crammed in there.
Yeah, I'm zooming in. It's all acting weird. But yeah.
So I have the whole home thing, but it's outside. And this thing, I talked about this in one of my live streams. That thing sits outside. I've had it for 2 or 3 years. It bakes. It broils. This year it froze to 7 degrees. Thank you, Texas.
Yep.
For like a week. And it's just been sending power data. The reason it's out there is because I have the dryer, the oven, and stove, and the air conditioner are all 220. And I wouldn't get the power measurement from that if I wasn't on the 220 circuit outside. So I would have a separate deal for this one for inside.
So mostly, if you do have a lot of problems, pile them in. He does have these available on there. I know I don't get any kickback, and I'll tell you this product sucks as always, but no, it's great. He has these 20, a lot of people are going to need just the 20 amps, to do all your individual circuits. This picture does it no justice. When I got these things in, they're so stupidly small that, and you can fit them in any breaker box. These 20
So you're
amp
saying
ones.
you were joking? Did they say that it's terrible, or they actually are?
No. I was just saying, because I pick on a lot of stuff. People will push sucky. It drives me nuts. They'll push sucky products just because they get a high revenue commission back, and that's just not my game. I get nothing back from the sales and stuff of what Circuit Setup does for his boards, but they're great products, and I just want to bring a good solution out there that people can use. I don't care whether I'm getting kickback with it. So I'm just saying whether I'll tell you if it sucks or it's good or bad,
So what do you, I mean, I do stuff because I can and I like to play with it, but what do you do with like all those circuits? Does it tell you anything, or is it just pretty graphs?
For the most part, I guess, pretty graphs. And being able to see that, hey, that this was, now this is the whole house, I can't say two phases, but the one that's out of phase and in phase, I guess you'll say. But so yeah, it just I guess more to allow you to see, hey, what's going on over there, and just seeing different. I guess you'd say that voltage that is phantom voltage, or stuff that's being pulled that you didn't know about. Yeah, I know it's
Yeah, I guess that's true, and I would do it. Like I said, I would do it. So Stone asked, he doesn't understand the whole point. The benefit, I don't know. So let me tell you one benefit that I have. It's not power monitoring, but it's water monitoring.
Yep, I haven't done that.
I use Flume water, and I have it tied into Home Assistant, which then graphs it in the influx and puts it into Grafana for me. There's some scenarios where some of the people in our area have been overcharged for their water bills or whatever.
Yep.
And no one's been able to correlate it. So I actually go in there and pull my data and I correlate it with the water bill, and I can tell you, and also it also tells me if there's a leak, which is another good reason. But I mean, I do watch that stuff. For power monitoring, I think you made a good point. I would like to know what's using power. Like maybe something is sitting all the time. In Texas, power in San Antonio, where I live. Now everybody knows where I live. Anyway, in Texas, where I live, it's pretty cheap. Our power is pretty cheap. So it's not a huge thing.
Yep.
But in some places where small devices or appliances rack up that money, it's nice to know what's doing that. So I might do it, just one, because I can. Number two, I make videos on this stuff for fun. And so I would do it for a video purpose. I have a box of crap that I've bought for videos, and then I don't know what to do with it after I'm done.
Yeah, join the club. I think we all have our boxes of crap. Don't even do any videos. So one thing that is a good method that you could do is, for instance, say you have an electric stove. You can't just throw a power monitoring plug on your electric stove. So you could throw a CT clamp on it, on that circuit, and monitor the power of your stove, and maybe build in some sort of automation where, because I know it's very common, the kids or whoever go throw a pizza in there, they pull the pizza out and they leave the stove on, and the stove runs for another hour until you come by and turn it off. Well, you can maybe build some sort of automation that would notify you, because there's probably sometimes you're cooking like a turkey or something like that, so you got it going for hours. You may want to turn that off, but you would notify you that, hey, the stove's still running. So you could do that easily with a CT clamp. Same thing for a huge one, is still my favorite, is doing the washer and dryer. Now I have a gas dryer, so it's very easy. I just throw an S31 on it or whatever power monitoring plug, and I can do notifications for washer and dryer. And that was one of the things I did way back, and has been like, we love it. The washer shuts off, and a couple minutes later we got notifications, hey, the washer's done. And I have it set where it tells us the washer's done if the dryer's not running, because then we can move it over. And then same thing when the dryer is done running, it tells us that way, because I hate ironing clothes. And so I'll just go pull my stuff out of the dryer right when it goes off.
What do you do for like somebody who said it here? They have an S31 on their stove. I couldn't do that because I've got a 220 stove. I've got a 220 electric dryer. So how do you? Is there anything out there that would do power monitoring for that? Or you? Because what I don't want to do is stick my. I don't know. I want to get outside and have clamp. I can't. There's nothing for me to put all that measuring on the outside boxes and weatherproof it. And
Okay.
those circuits come strictly from outside.
Yeah, and then you're trying to put, you don't want to put stuff in the, I get that, put stuff in the breaker box. You could put stuff behind, like actually one of my videos, I do show with ESP Home, you can do it with Tasmota now. Just using a CT clamp, a capacitor and a couple resistors, and you use a regular CT clamp and you can actually put it on the dryer plug itself, or some people have actually put it in the little junction box in the dryer. And you could probably do the same thing behind this if you can get to it, of course, is, you know, because a CT clamp, you're just going to want it on one leg, one of the split phases. You can't put it around the entire thing.
I see people, they're advertising your videos on that for you.
Yeah.
If only somebody did some videos on that.
Yeah, I did those way back. And actually, if you see Jim here in the chat, you can actually see that he actually, because I don't have an electric dryer, he sent me some pictures and stuff that he did with showing his dryer, putting a CT clamp. And some people opted where, hey, I don't want to dig behind the dryer. And it was easier for them to put that CT clamp in the actual breaker box, because it may have been in a closet or something like that.
I mean, I could, but I'd have to buy a weather approved outdoor setup for that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then I'd have to open, I was really nervous because that panel is on, the panel I put it on is on the power company side, I think, or something like that.
And there's no way to cut it off?
No. So I just went in there one day and I stuck my fingers in the 220 box and I just said, I'm just going to clamp this real quick and run. I did it.
Well, don't do that too. I don't recommend that unless you really know what you're doing.
But I would like to have it. I do have the power monitoring for the dryer of a washing machine. And it's funny, and I talked about this, I think, in my live stream too, is the washing machine, the display runs about 5 watts if it's on.
Right.
And that if every so often it stays on after the cycle is finished to flash you need to run a cleaning cycle on this thing deal. And so the display would never go below 5 watts, or the power would never go below 5 watts, because it's trying to, or because it's leaving the display on for that alert. And so I set it to, if it's 5 watts or less for more than 5 minutes, I consider the washing machine off. And then I would announce it on smart speakers or whatever. Say the washer's finished. But I never had a way to do the stove or the dryer.
Yeah.
I really want to see how much that stove draws.
Yeah. Now and I will say, doing it this method, it's not the most reliable. Like, not saying reliable. It's not going to get you that accurate, like, hey, I want to know if it's pulling, this many watts or this many amps, because you're doing this over an analog pin on an ESP-8266. Is there going to be no comparison to a product like that circuit setup 6-channel board that you can actually measure? Still blows me away. I measured one LED light bulb that was pulling like 12 watts with a 100 amp clamp on that wire, and it would measure it reliably. But that's just that integrated circuit they have. But for the most part, we're just trying to see, is the dryer running, yes or no? Or is the oven running, yes or no? So you could just build something like this it's really a simple circuit that with some, you're putting a bias. I don't want to go through all the whole thing because I go through in the video. But I'm trying to find where Jim's pictures are, kind of do a better understanding of where this all is at. Yeah, here's Jim's. So he actually, I think he put the clamp in the actual panel in the dryer itself. And of course, it's going to be based on what anybody's, the dryers and stuff and what you can get to. And so he just stuck his inside there. And now if your cord, actually, if you can, some where you can actually see the conductors and you can split them apart, there's not like one black cable, then you could actually do it that way and put it outside the dryer. So it's just going to be based on whatever you can get access to put the CT clamp.
Dryer plugs have like those conductors that are
What's that?
split. Those 220s, I think most of them allow you to unscrew them as single conductors as well.
Yeah, because of a lot of the houses and stuff where we have the 3-prong versus the 4-prong. So even a lot of I haven't bought an electric dryer in forever, but a lot don't even come with the plug. Then they may now.
Yeah, you have to buy the plug as a separate deal. Here's an expensive dryer, but here's another $50 for the plug because we don't give a.
So this one, and Jim showed me actually he was just actually putting the CT clamp in the actual breaker box. I know that's not an option for you, and this is like in a closet in a basement or something, and he's got Tupperware or something, or I'm gonna call it Tupperware, on the side with his little ESP modules in it to keep them from shorting out on something. So.
There's too many ideas coming from this stream tonight.
Yeah.
Today? I'm not doing house chores today because I got projects.
So of course I could go on forever and ever about all this stuff, but of course I've been doing it, in which, eventually I'll probably go your way on a live stream or something, one of your times if you still have me, and be able to do some type of I'll get maybe some ideas for stuff as well. Jim also has, which he's in here, he actually has a cool thing. If I can find that picture, he may be able to post it or send me a link to it on Discord. He has power monitoring on his dishwasher, and he has an LED strip of the diffuser, and it tells him if the dishes are clean or not. And then it works as, I think, if he opens the door, I want to say he was using like the Hall effect on an ESP-32, and he actually pulls the door open. It turns on white to actually give light into the dishwasher itself.
So. Nice. I got one of those fancy dishwashers whenever our other one went out, and nowadays you buy them, they have passive drying, and you have to do something with it to, like the stainless steel on the inside of the dryer. It cools quicker than the glass stuff that you put in there, so it wicks the water away from your dishes or whatever.
Oh, that's cool.
But there's been people saying, well, you open the door as soon as it's done and it lets out a little bit of the steam, so it will cool or dry. I don't know. That would be interesting. Somebody keeps asking here about flume versus fin. Fin. I've never used, I don't even know what fin is. I didn't evaluate that one. One of the reasons I went with flume, number one, it looks like the pricing is much different because it's a strap-on water meter, or strap-on meter monitoring thing. It actually just sits outside on the water meter, and it wirelessly connects into into the sensor, or into the heck's it called, not access point, the base station for the flume deal, and that one allows, I don't have to do any plumbing, in other words, and I want it outside on the thing there because I have a sprinkler system, irrigation system.
Yeah. And
I want it to be able to monitor how much water the irrigation system's using.
But see, Chris, it says it's the most accurate, though.
What's that?
It says it's the most accurate. No, I'm just media.
Yeah, but I don't see a way to strap it on a meter. Like they don't. Plus, my water company gave me a rebate on the flume.
It looks like they have a plus one now or something. It looks like
I didn't pay that much.
Yeah, their page would load. But it looks like there's a plus one that has where it goes in between. Where they actually got to plumb it through it.
Yeah, and that's the problem with. I mean, I could have plumbed one of those from Flume, but again, I want to monitor the irrigation system, and so I have it strapped. It's just a battery thing. It's a battery powered box. It sits on the water meter, I don't know how it works. It's insane to me, but it actually will. It senses pressure fluctuations in the water line or in the meter, or some sort of like there's maybe something spinning in the meter that it picks up, and it accurately depicts the water usage by passive monitoring of the pressure fluctuation or something. It's crazy. I don't even know how it works.
So he sent me his pictures. You can actually see the white light here. He's got another one I'll pull up.
Is that in the dishwasher itself?
No, it's actually above it. This picture shows better.
Oh, that's nice.
So there's a little diffuser, like those little aluminum strip diffusers, and you put the LED strip in it.
Yep.
And he has it just change colors, whether like I think red or green, and then the white or whatever to show different statuses for the dishwasher. So
I've been corrected, or I've been educated. The magnet in the meter rotates. That's how they're measuring that stuff.
Ah, yes.
It's interesting. One of the things I will say about Flume, not sponsored, is that there was some issue when it was reading wrong and it was overinflating the water. I got on their chat and somebody got on there and said, oh, let me do this. Boom, boom, boom. And it retroactively fixed all of my readings to almost within. I keep a spreadsheet because that's how I am. And I compare the usage from Flume versus what the billing is for my water company. And it's within less than 1%. So it's 10 to 20 gallons different. See, that's number 3 right there.
Yeah.
It just straps onto the water meter. It's got a little rubber strap. It just straps onto it.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, that's something I haven't done. I know if I would want to do the water, then I'd probably want to do my gas.
So here's an interesting thing with the gas. I don't know how to read this, but I have a smart gas meter and I have a smart electric meter.
Yes.
And when I started messing with the weather stuff, I have a video on picking up my 433 megahertz weather stuff, whatever frequency. I forget.
Yep.
No, it's 9 something. From my weather station in the backyard, I have a Raspberry Pi that listens to that. I'm seeing all of the water or all the electric meters around me showing up on that feed as well. But my neighbor has solar, and she's got 2 meters on her house. So the problem is I don't know which meter is mine and which meter is hers of the 2 she has. And I haven't seen the gas meter either. So those are the things I want to integrate using just RF and just reading the RF straight off the deal.
Yeah, that could be I did check to see what mine, but I couldn't find I found some meters for the other company that's north of me, but I don't know what that meter's coming off of. But and we don't have smart gas meters. It's the old school gas meters here. So, but the water thing, I think it would be cool to do, especially for. I guess I'd be more interested in. Because the way mine is probably much like yours. It's not, of course, no basement here. And, there's just a PEX hose that comes out the ground and it goes up. Maybe there's a little ball valve and then it goes right into the brick. There might be room, but I actually have a licensed plumber in the family, and we could actually plumb something. But then it would be outside the house, and then I don't have any power on that side of the house unless I probably jumped it out of one of my air conditioner units, which I probably don't want to do. So
yeah, that was two things: was the power for it, and then which is battery for Flume, and then the just having it measure irrigation. I can't get to my water line. It's once it leaves the meter. In fact, there's no. We have a pressure something thing on there that went out. The water company blew out most of those in our neighborhood somehow.
Like a pop-off valve,
pressure relief valve, or whatever it's called. It keeps the pressure from getting too high coming into the house.
Yep.
And once it hits that and goes under the ground, I can't see it again.
Oh wow.
So I have no access. Now there's a water. It's funny. It goes into the right side of the house, but the water softener is far on the left. But it also feeds the spigots going to the backyard and the side. So all that kind of splits in that wall right there. And I would miss if someone left the water on.
Yeah.
And before I had the Flume in there, I had a leak in my sprinkler system on a supply line. It just sat there I walked out one day and I sank into the ground. It'd probably been running for a month. I had
Yep.
no idea that I had a leak. So that's where the benefit comes from.
Yeah, and see that
From
one of the things I'm looking at because I've actually known someone that has had, it's now they have something different, and I don't know what exactly they went to. They don't do Home Assistant, but the same thing. Like they live in a rural area, so it's not like their neighbor sees their house very easily. Well, they get home and they had been gone for a week. Well, the toilet decided to start leaking and flooded. And when they walked up to the house, there's water just rolling out the front door. And they had no idea that it was happening for going on for a week, that they had water rolling out of their front door. And
The only thing I will say for that flume is it doesn't shut the water off. Some of
yeah.
these deals will allow you to control that.
And see, that's what I'm interested in. I want to do just like water leak sensors and then being able to turn it off. But then I would like to see the flow rates as well. I would really like to do that.
You know what I could do, I guess, at some point is get a solenoid or something and put it in line with the water softener line coming into the house.
Yep.
And if I see a leak somewhere, I'll just push a button, shut the water off. I don't care if the sprinkler leaks while I'm gone. I mean, mostly I don't care. But if something in the house starts flooding, I want to be able to turn the water off. So that might be something to investigate.
Yeah, there's several of them that actually there you can get. Some of these are or actually have ESP chips in them, so you could flash Tasmota on them, and you're really just strapping them to the valve, and it's just a little servo, and you could do some sort of automation and have it turn that valve on and off. Now, like you said, that in your case, but you could still cut the house off. You could cut off the living area, though, right?
Yeah, I would prefer. I mean, if I saw something leaking, I'd definitely want to do that.
But if it leaked on your outside spigots or your sprinkler system while you're on vacation, it's not going to. It shouldn't ruin any of your living area, though.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, the grass gets a little extra water or something, or I call my neighbor, hey, can you go out there when you get a chance and shut the main valve off? Versus, if you bust up like a washing machine hose, you're pumping gallons of water a second into your house, and it's just going to kill everything. It's immediate mold. It's just going to ruin it.
Yeah, and Sir Goodenough brings up a good case as well. Depending on your design of things, you cut the water off, and the leak could actually drain the water out of your water heater. I won't say a hot water heater. And then now you'll end up if you have an electric one or whatever, depending on whatever type, if you don't have a tankless, then you could have an issue there as well. But now you got to build another automation to cut that off.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what you're saying is if I shut the water off, it also needs to trip the water heater gas valve or whatever. No, that's just plugged into the wall.
Depends
I
on
could shut that off with a switch.
Depends on those. So.
Well, it's gas fire, yeah, but the thermostat's electric. So.
And it all depends on I know Patrick is saying, well, it'd be okay or whatever. Yeah, I would definitely prefer to go, if I have an electric water heater, go change a damn element in it, because it should pop off the thing. But yeah, there's multiple ways to do it. And the reason why I know that I've actually had someone that was in a trailer house at a camp. They cut the water off, and then they would drain the water to get as much water as they could out of the pipes. Well, they forgot to turn the breaker off on the water heater and actually burn the elements up because it drained the water out of the water heater. So
I'll pay $500 for a new water heater before I'll pay thousands of dollars to replace the moldy plaster and walls and stuff.
And then the time and pain of, yeah, exactly. I will pay for a broken water heater. So
water heaters are designed to be fine if the power dies. When we had the snowpocalypse over here, we were all shutting off. We had no water. They shut our water off too.
Oh wow!
And so I went and turned my water heater off, and then my neighbors were all, I was helping neighbors around turning their water heater to pilot light, because we're all gas out here.
Yep.
Because I don't want to burn it up. It's funny, we were picking. I was getting snow melt and using water to flush the toilets with snow melted water. Never snows here, but we had 6 feet of snow, so it was melting off the roofs, and I was using that for non-potable water.
Stone is probably, I know Texas is big, but Austin probably not far from you, so it's same thing.
Oh yeah, it was 105 hours of below freezing or something in Austin.
Yeah,
we were at 110 here.
And
or
of
something
course,
like that.
I'm to your east now. I have a lot of issues with my power company where they, even though we have smart meters, and it will be on their map, they'll just close. They'll say, "Oh no, neighborhood has power," and they'll close the ticket. And because the middle of the neighborhood is fed from the back, and then they come in, they'll see the exterior, and they'll close the ticket. And so they forgot about us. They fixed the outside within a day, but I was out of power for 4 or 5 days. And finally, we had to make a bunch of phone calls to the mayor and stuff, and then they're like, "Oh, well, yeah," because people would argue. They would argue within the phone, "No, your power is on," and I'm like, "No, it's not." And
I don't understand what
they would not
I
put us on.
mean,
I'm like, "Look at your damn smart meters. You can see the whole middle of the neighborhood is out." And they were like, "We
they
don't
give
have
us a
access
phone
to
call
that."
like an hour after the power goes out. Hey, by the way, we noticed your power's out. We're working on it.
Yep.
Because the smart meter tells them. I know they say call in, call or tell us if you have a power, but I don't know why they would ever do that.
Yep. So
Unless whatever monitoring system they have, like the main, that must go back over the power lines, right? So if a main line busts, do they still get the power notification whenever they would probably get some other notification from their
the
main system?
the ones that I'm with Entergy, the ones that are here, actually I see them on the poles, the collectors. I don't know if those collect through 2.4 gigahertz or 900 megahertz. They collect and they put them on like the light poles and stuff. From what I've heard, they do have batteries in them, and they actually send back thrust through LTE cellular back to their system.
Yeah, they're saying 900 megahertz. I know there's some of those, and ours doesn't have an antenna around here. I think it's strictly power line monitored, but you would, I mean, I've done network monitoring. If you see a big swath of your network goes out, you trace it to the common point. Oh, the
Yep.
substation just blew a lid or whatever. All right, it's late
Yep.
for me.
Yeah,
Tomorrow's a work day.
same here. And of course, we could talk all day about this stuff. We've been going like 2.5. So I know we got to some of the stuff. So it was a good little content filled stream. I'll maybe put a couple little timestamps in there. So, but I appreciate everybody hanging around who hung out this long bit. And we'll try to, hopefully, if Chris lets me come, he'll let me come his way eventually. So.
Yep, I gotta clear that. I got lucky tonight. Everyone's gone. I'm just by myself with a dog,
Oh.
so I get to do as much as I want. The other ones I got to squeeze in between all kinds of other family events and everything else.
Yep.
But if I do an evening one, I might be able to get away with that. But I usually do a weekend day. But I think the evening one works okay.
Yeah.
Like put the kids to bed and then I can start playing.
And that's kind of what my thing is. And then hey, I don't drink a whole lot, but hey, I can have, one drink or something like that during the stream and chill out a little bit. But yeah, I guess you could do that for breakfast too, but I just don't. But kids are in bed and the wife's doing her thing. So that's, it's kind of easy. So, but
Yeah,
I know it
my
doesn't
wife,
fit a lot
she
of
needs to
the,
find a Netflix show and then I'm good to go.
yeah, it doesn't fit a lot of the time zones, but hey, I guess if you mix it up, do some days and evenings, you can kind of fit everybody. So.
Yeah, and the good news is you can always restream this stuff if people want to watch us yabber about stuff for another one.
Yep. So, all right. Well, I am going to throw my little ending scene, and then we'll get off of here after that. So I appreciate everybody, and
Thank you.
maybe we'll do another
Thanks
one.
for hosting.
I'm gonna mute you for a little bit. So.
Okay.
I don't know.